In a lively office buzzing with activity, employees are deeply engrossed in their work. Among them sits Howard, a young man in the advertising department of the renowned Grand Glory Limited. With his phone pressed to his ear, he professionally assures a caller that their request has been logged and the issue will be resolved within 3 days. It's a routine task, much like his everyday life, which feels like an endless cycle of work, day in and day out. Howard reflects on his career with a resigned sigh. The weight of his responsibilities is constant, and the clarity he once had about his future is now clouded by uncertainty. Yet, today, there's a momentary glimmer of satisfaction. He finally nailed a challenging task. But even this fleeting accomplishment is overshadowed by the looming sense of doubt about where he's headed. Just then, a senior colleague approaches, addressing him with an air of urgency. The man shares unsettling news. The company has been facing tough times and layoffs are imminent. The warning is clear. Howard needs to step up his efforts. Panic sets in as the implications of the conversation sink in. Before Howard can dwell on it, the man hands him a hefty book filled with potential clients. The task is straightforward yet daunting. Call every name on the list and report back by tomorrow. Howard, overwhelmed, wonders why he's being given this monumental task. To make matters stranger, someone nearby mentions a dream test, a bizarre concept rooted in advanced big data analytics. According to their calculations, Howard is the ideal candidate. Howard is baffled. A dream test? He's never even been interested in VR products, let alone wanted to be a part of such a project. The explanation follows. It's a cutting-edge simulation, an exclusive experience akin to a high-end VR game, where participants can live out different scenarios in a custom-built dreamland. The concept feels absurd to Howard. He considers leaving, citing his work obligations. However, before he can step away, someone casually mentions that Dreamland includes a feature to recreate duplicates of real people and shape their experiences. The suggestion lingers provocatively. What if he could live as someone else? Another remarks, almost tauntingly, that Howard doesn't seem content with his current life. Amid the chaos, the atmosphere shifts as the boss enters, accompanied by the poised and confident Sabrina Liu, their newly appointed director. Introductions begin, with the boss highlighting the achievements of key team members. One worker, ever the opportunist, showers Sabrina with praise while crediting his success to the boss's guidance. Howard silently fumes at the blatant flattery, observing how this sycophantic behavior has propelled his colleague's career. When the spotlight turns to Howard, the boss dismissively refers to him as mediocre and lacking in interpersonal skills. Sabrina's curiosity about him is quickly brushed aside. A flashback reveals a stark contrast. Howard had once been praised by colleagues for securing a high-maintenance client, a feat that drew envious glares from others. Yet, his straightforward nature often clashed with superiors, including Mr. Wong, who had undermined him before. As the day winds down, the team exchanges goodbyes, preparing for another grind tomorrow. Alone with his thoughts, Howard reflects bitterly on his efforts. He believed that hard work would eventually earn him recognition, but reality has proven otherwise. Later, Donald, a fellow employee, advises him once again to play the game, to align with the boss's interests and secure his position. But Howard resents the idea, recalling how Donald had previously sabotaged others, turning their successes into stepping stones for his own gain. A question lingered in Howard's mind. Was this truly the right thing to do? Meanwhile, in a passing taxi, Donald observed Wong and Sabrina. Wong, always assertive, warned Sabrina not to waste her energy on the workers. Tomorrow would demand her full attention. Sabrina, unshaken, dismissed his concern with quiet confidence, her words layered with a resolute self-assurance. Wong, however, pressed on, hinting that her actions sent mixed signals. He worried they might encourage overreach. Unbeknownst to them, Howard overheard every word, his mind racing with unresolved tension. Howard had grown weary. Outside the workplace, his hard work often went unnoticed, overshadowed by the weight of discrimination. He had endured enough. A decision formed in his mind. Tomorrow, he'd seriously consider resignation. But tonight, his frustration demanded an outlet. Determined, he initiated the Dreamland system. His goal was clear, to scan Sabrina Liu and Mr. Wong for duplicates within the virtual space. Yet, an error flashed across the screen. Only one individual could be scanned at a time. The system prioritized Sabrina. The scan concluded, and Howard felt a pang of frustration. Why hadn't he been told earlier about this limitation? As his irritation flared, the system detected his emotional spike. A mechanized voice concluded he was enjoying this. He muttered about Sabrina's antics, half annoyed, half amused at the idea of an NPC servant modeled after her. The system reminded him that Dreamland would activate at midnight, leaving him just a few hours to rest. But sleep wouldn't come easily. Anxieties churned in Howard's mind, keeping him awake. The system intervened, activating a neural protocol to override his brain's sleep resistance. His consciousness faded into slumber. When he awoke, Howard found himself sprawled on the floor. Before him stood a girl, her presence commanding yet enigmatic. She introduced herself as AI-63. The voice that had been guiding him all along now materialized as his Dreamland administrator. Howard rose, brushing off the moment's disorientation, and asked, "Has it started?" "Not yet," AI-63 replied. Supplies were necessary for the impending battles. With a gesture, she opened a door marked with the number 1, revealing a shop stocked with survival tools and weapons. Credit points became his currency, and each item carried a price. A machete for 2 points, a truck for 40, compressed food for 1. As Howard surveyed the items, his gaze landed on an endless power battery. Its potential fascinated him, but AI-63 warned him not to touch what he wasn't ready to purchase. Howard nodded, absorbing her advice. Strategic spending would be crucial. He inquired about NPCs, particularly strong ones. AI-63 informed him that a powerful NPC would cost an exorbitant 10,000 points. Howard's protest of robbery earned only a calm response. Then came the final moment. AI-63 declared that Dreamland would activate immediately. The Doomsday Survival door creaked open, revealing the challenge ahead. "Have fun," she said, her tone both encouraging and foreboding, before leaving him to face his fate. A faint, eerie glow spilled from the door, jolting Howard awake. Panic clawed at him as he lay in bed, his breath shallow and rapid. The familiar surroundings of his home greeted him, unchanged, unyielding. He scolded himself for his naivety. How foolish to think technology, in all its advancements, could conjure an entire world from nothing. With a resigned sigh, he resolved to shake off the remnants of his restless thoughts, freshen up, and head to work. The bathroom light flickered on, casting harsh shadows on the walls, only to plunge him into darkness as the power abruptly failed. Unease curled in his stomach as he dressed and stepped outside. The street was desolate, an unsettling emptiness hanging in the air. Where were the people? His thoughts halted as the roar of an airplane shattered the silence, its descent catastrophic. Howard froze, eyes wide, as the aircraft crashed in front of him, flames erupting into the sky. A voice, cold and automated, chimed from a nearby car. Mini Dreamland Doomsday Survival initiated. Level 0. Duration 180 days. Panic tightened his chest. 180 days? He whispered, disbelief flooding his mind. Before he could process, a stream of gasoline leaked from the wreckage, igniting a fiery explosion. He dove to the ground, the heat searing, chaos consuming him. Heart racing, Howard gathered his thoughts. The voice had posed a grim challenge. Survive in a world where humanity had vanished. Planes could plummet, disasters would strike, and supplies were finite. His mind churned. He needed food, water, shelter, medicine, tools, and transportation. The days stretched out before him, daunting yet finite. If he strategized carefully, he could endure, and perhaps even reclaim control of his life, using this time to prepare for a fresh start after his resignation. Determined, he scavenged. A radio caught his eye, its crackling static oddly comforting. Trinkets of no practical value became tokens of fleeting joy. Yet his musings about survival turned surreal as a tiger, unmistakably real, padded into view. Howard froze as the creature approached, its golden eyes steady. The tiger, a former petting zoo resident named Dummy, renowned for its friendly demeanor, licked his face with surprising gentleness. The absurdity of the moment struck him. Even in this simulated nightmare, no detail was overlooked. Days turned into weeks. By the 7th day, the water supply had failed, forcing him to rely on bottled reserves. Without refrigeration, food spoiled rapidly, and maggots infested everything. He scavenged what he could, from canned goods to heartier rations, but the looming specter of malnutrition gnawed at him. It was during one of these desperate searches that he stumbled upon salvation, the Blue Sky restaurant. Inside, a diesel generator hummed faintly, a relic of his childhood memories. It had kept the building powered for 7 days, but its whirring suggested imminent failure. The frozen meat was salvageable, but only just. He resolved to make this his base, working by day to gather supplies, and by night to cultivate land and prepare for long-term survival. By the 31st day, Howard's resolve wavered as the weight of isolation bore down on him. The city was a wasteland, a graveyard of rotting produce and relentless flies. Even the faint promise of fresh garlic sprouts, a hard-won victory, felt hollow amidst the stench and decay. At night, the suffocating darkness whispered of abandonment, and the wind carried only the echoes of a world long gone. Despair crept closer, but Howard clung to purpose. This game, cruel and unrelenting, was his to master, not the other way around. One day, as he drove aimlessly, his thoughts drifted to Sabrina Liu, the mysterious assistant promised to him in this simulated world. Was she real? A trick of the developers? His musings were interrupted by the sight of another car, a girl visible through its window. Howard's pulse quickened. Could it be Sabrina? In the dim light of the morning, Sabrina stirred awake, the coarse fabric of borrowed men's clothes brushing against her skin. A faint ache reminded her of the bandaged wound beneath, yet her curiosity outweighed the discomfort. She stepped toward the door, pushing it open to reveal a diesel generator humming steadily and shelves stocked with preserved food. No signs of the decay she had grown accustomed to. Howard's voice broke the silence, calm but laced with concern. He urged her to eat, presenting a modest meal he'd prepared. As she sat to eat, memories flickered in her mind. She remembered him, not the man before her now, but from a shared dinner after work, back when the world still spun on its ordinary axis. Hesitant, she asked his name. Howard, he replied, his voice tinged with recognition, as though he too saw glimmers of the past in her face. Sabrina's gaze drifted to the generator, the stocked shelves, and the patch of cultivated land beyond the door. "Did you do all of this?" she asked, her voice a mix of admiration and disbelief. Howard nodded, explaining his modest success in creating a semblance of stability. Then, turning the question back to her, he inquired about her journey. Her words carried a weight that hung heavy in the air. She spoke of her return to her hometown, now desolate, and the realization that Howard was the first living soul she'd encountered in a month. "What happened to the world?" she asked, her voice cracking under the enormity of the question. Howard could only shake his head. Answers eluded him as well. Their conversation flowed, tentative yet steady, like two survivors navigating the ruins of familiarity. Howard suggested they team up, a natural step in this new world where survival meant pooling resources. Sabrina agreed, albeit with a caveat. She needed boundaries, a distance between them, not just physically but emotionally. The declaration caught Howard off guard, a sharp reminder of their differences. Still, he agreed, rationalizing it as another facet of this strange new reality. Days passed, and their coexistence began to take shape. But tensions simmered beneath the surface. One morning, Howard awoke to the clatter of Sabrina reorganizing the warehouse, claiming it as her own space. She handed him a walkie-talkie, dismissively assuring him it would suffice for communication. The loss of the mannequin, a crude stand-in for companionship, stung Howard in ways he struggled to articulate. When she casually admitted to discarding it, he felt a pang of betrayal. Their tenuous alliance frayed further when Howard discovered a missing pistol from his collection. His accusations were met with Sabrina's exasperation, her patience wearing thin. She proposed separate routines, cooking and laundry apart, to avoid constant friction. Howard, though reluctant, conceded, interpreting it as a necessary measure for peace. Yet their differences continued to clash. Sabrina defended her guarded demeanor, citing her need for safety as a lone woman in uncertain company. Howard, stung by her assumptions, lashed out with bitter honesty, acknowledging her beauty and status, but rejecting the notion that her sense of security should come at his expense. Their words cut deep, exposing vulnerabilities neither had intended to reveal. Day 120. Howard stepped outside, greeted by a brisk, cooler breeze. He noted the subtle transformation. This world, once barren and alien, now brimmed with life. Sabrina's careful hand had lined the streets with vibrant, potted plants, their lush greenery turning the neighborhood into a picturesque sanctuary. The vegetable garden thrived under her management, solving the food crisis that had once loomed so heavily over them. Yet, despite these victories, silence stretched between them, a silence born from a quarrel 3 months ago. He wondered how anyone could endure such isolation for so long. He couldn't. The creak of the car door broke his thoughts. Donald, his steadfast companion, sat in the passenger seat. Howard mused aloud about Sabrina, questioning whether her fierce battle with the garden mice had fractured something deeper within her. She seemed to thrive now without human connection, pouring her energy into the land as if the plants were her only companions. Today's mission was clear: scout for new supplies. Howard grimaced as he recalled the state of the supermarket's meat section. Maggot-infested and inedible. "We'll die before those germs get us," he muttered. Fish might be a better alternative. Maggots they could endure. Bacteria they could not. He resolved to catch fish, a food that at least appeared palatable. Their route included a stop at the zoo, a place Howard visited with both dread and fascination. He had formed an uneasy bond with the tiger there, a magnificent creature that had somehow survived, adapting to the strange rules of this new world. As Howard approached, the tiger lay lazily, exuding both power and calm. He chuckled, giving it a good rub, marveling that this apex predator had managed to outlast so many others. The tiger's diet, however, was a grim reminder of the world they now inhabited. Herbivores turned into prey, survival dictating the rules. Howard tossed the last of the meat from his dwindling freezer stock, watching as the tiger devoured the offering. But the moment of peace shattered when the beast suddenly bolted, lunging at a deer. Howard's heart skipped. Deer didn't have antlers in this zoo. This was a creature from the outside, a stark symbol of nature reclaiming civilization. The sky began to darken, and Howard felt a shift in the air. Heavy, oppressive. His instincts screamed danger. "A typhoon," he muttered, eyes scanning the horizon. But a force 10 typhoon here? They were far from the coast. The realization struck like a thunderclap. This wasn't reality. It was the game, a cruel challenge designed to test him. His thoughts darted to Sabrina. Every day, she rode her bike into the mountains. She should have reached the peak by now, but where was she? Fear gnawed at him as he sped toward the house, the storm bearing down. The streets that Sabrina had so meticulously adorned were now strewn with fallen plants, a chaotic mirror of the storm within him. The door to the house stood ajar. Sabrina wasn't back. His mind raced, envisioning her defiance against the storm, perhaps battling it as she had the mice. He could almost hear her commanding them to leave her tomatoes alone. The storm was unrelenting, pounding the world around them with rain and wind. Howard stopped his car suddenly when he saw Sabrina standing alone, holding onto a pole for support. Her phone's flashlight barely lit up her face, pale with fear. Her leg was injured, and she looked fragile, as if the storm had drained all her strength. She asked him quietly if she would die here. Howard, steady and firm, told her no. He lit a small fire with his lighter to bring some warmth and calm to the chaos around them. His eyes drifted toward the mountains, and the dark outline of a mansion he'd forgotten was there. Sabrina used to ride her bike in this area often, but now she was far from the strong, adventurous person he remembered. Howard knelt beside her to check her injury, but she pulled away, insisting she was fine. He stood, his tone serious. "This isn't the time to act tough," he said. "If that wound gets infected, it could be dangerous." But Sabrina shook her head and insisted she could handle it on her own. With a frustrated sigh, Howard turned to the task at hand. "Fine," he said. "Here's the plan. This storm could flood everything in the valley. That mansion in the mountains is high enough to be safe. We'll move whatever we can there and use it as our shelter." Sabrina asked what she could do, but Howard shook his head. "With that leg, not much. Stay here, keep the fire going, and make sure the room is ventilated so you don't get poisoned by the smoke." Howard stepped out into the freezing rain, taking a deep breath to steady himself. His thoughts were racing. The storm wasn't just dangerous. It had already stripped them of almost everything. The generator was broken, the freezer ruined, and most of their food had gone bad or been washed away. All that remained was barely enough for 2 meals. Hunting or fishing in this weather wasn't an option, and even the animal burrows were flooded. "This is life," he muttered bitterly to himself. But there was no time for self-pity. He needed to act quickly. He thought of Donald, a friend who once warned him that living too cautiously left you unprepared for real challenges. That truth stung now as Howard realized how ill-equipped they were to face this disaster. Suddenly, a tiger appeared out of the shadows. Howard called the animal Dummy, a name born from their strange, uneasy companionship over the past months. He needed the tiger's sharp instincts and strength, but Dummy's wild nature made him unpredictable. Howard pleaded with the tiger to help him hunt, but the tiger roared and turned away, leaving Howard to fend for himself. The storm pressed on as Howard drove through the rain. Everything felt strange and dreamlike, too vivid to be real, yet somehow off. Sabrina, Dummy, the storm itself. They all seemed like shadows of something familiar but distant. Then he saw Sabrina lying on the ground. He slammed the brakes and rushed her aside. She was soaked and shivering, barely able to speak. She explained weakly that she had gone out to collect rainwater, wanting to pull her weight and not rely on him for everything. But her stubbornness had left her collapsed and helpless in the mud. Howard lifted her, despite her protests. She insisted he let her go, reminding him of their deal. She handled the house while he worked outside. But Howard had had enough. "Stop it," he snapped, his voice sharp. "I've got too much to deal with already. From now on, I'm making the decisions." Howard put Sabrina on the bed, telling her to stay put while he fetches the emergency kit. His tone was firm as he warned her against any reckless actions, adding that he would show no mercy if she did. Sabrina, frustrated, snapped that she could handle her wounds herself and didn't need his help. But Howard's expression remained serious as he reminded her that they were barely 2 meals away from starvation. He told her to recover quickly so she could help with the chores, otherwise they would both end up starving. As Howard tended to her wounds, Sabrina broke the silence by asking what his plan was. He explained that he had once seen some deer nearby, but they had run off. Tomorrow he planned to go hunting. Sabrina's curiosity sparked, and she asked about the deer. He confirmed they were wild deer that had taken over the land after people disappeared. Sabrina warned him that wild animals are quick to remember scents associated with danger and will stay highly alert. When she asked if he had scared the deer off before, he hesitated but eventually admitted that they might have sensed him. However, he reassured her that he had guns. Howard then mentioned finding a pistol under her pillow when packing essentials from their old place. He had left a bullet in it, just as it was. Sabrina picked up the gun, asking if he wasn't planning to use it. Howard responded that desperate times called for desperate measures and hoped this conversation would clear any misconceptions she had about him. He then urged her to rest since he needed to prepare for the hunt the next day. The snow continued falling outside as day 121 began. Howard stepped out, marveling at how the storm had transformed the surroundings. As he walked, he reflected on Sabrina's words from the night before. Her warnings about the deer had stuck with him. He realized he didn't know how to make traps and wasn't even sure if he had the courage to kill a deer. He carried a fishing net with him as a backup plan, hoping it could catch something without bait. He followed tracks in the snow, but each time he got close, the deer would vanish. This happened repeatedly, leaving him exhausted and frustrated. It felt as though the deer were deliberately avoiding him, making him question if they truly remembered his scent. Realizing he was wasting his energy, he decided to try his luck at a nearby lake. The lake was turbulent from the previous storm, but Howard cast his net anyway. When the net snagged something, he felt a flicker of hope until it pulled so hard that he fell into the snow. Soaked and coughing, he cursed his bad luck. As he got up, shivering, he spotted a deer standing nearby. For a moment, he was stunned. Could this really be his chance? Frantically, he searched for his rifle, only to realize it was missing, probably lost in the water. He grabbed his shotgun instead, taking a deep breath as he aimed. But before he could steady himself, the deer bolted, startled by the blast of his shot. The recoil knocked him off balance, leaving him bleeding and angry at himself for another failure. Defeated, Howard made his way back to the cabin. On his way, he heard wolves howling. Fear gripped him as he turned to see 2 wolves sniffing the blood on his clothes. To his surprise, they didn't attack and simply walked away. Relieved, he hurried home. When he arrived, Sabrina was sitting on the bed and asked if he was back. He began removing his wet clothes, prompting her to look away, embarrassed. She asked him what he was doing, and he explained that he was freezing and needed the fire to warm up. She quickly told him there was no need to take off everything. Howard apologized and stopped, chuckling awkwardly. As he sat by the fire, Sabrina noticed a photo slipping out of his wallet. It was of him with a young woman. Curious, she asked if it was his girlfriend. Ex-girlfriend, he replied simply. She asked why they had broken up, and he admitted that he had wanted a family but she hadn't been ready to settle down. Turning the topic to her, Howard teased that she must have admirers. Sabrina casually mentioned her boyfriend, Lawrence, a successful tech executive with a doctorate from MIT. Howard joked that Lawrence must be brave to date someone like her. Sabrina, offended, reminded him that she was his boss. Realizing she had overstepped, she quickly apologized. Just as the conversation was settling, her blanket slipped slightly, and they both froze in embarrassment. She quickly told him to stop staring and ordered him out. Howard raised his hands in surrender, saying he was leaving. As he stepped out, he muttered to himself about how ridiculous the day had been. His stomach growled, a harsh reminder of the worsening hunger. On days 122 and 123, Howard ventured deeper into the jungle. He observed the deer carefully, but no matter how stealthy he tried to be, he could only catch fleeting glimpses of their shadows. If he got too close, they vanished into the woods, making all his effort meaningless. He thought to himself that he would never touch a gun in real life, and that being a full-time hunter wasn't for him. His short-range weapon wasn't suitable for such a task either. He tried shooting at the deer several times, but none were caught. The inability to approach the deer felt like a death sentence. By days 124 and 125, Howard stayed home, tending to Sabrina's wounds. They had begun talking more often, and Sabrina, despite her condition, never complained about his failed hunts or their worsening situation. Howard admired her independence, though it concerned him. She was growing weaker. Her bones weren't healing, and she hadn't mentioned any stomach pain for a long time. He chose not to tell her about the wolves he'd encountered, knowing she would insist on sharing more responsibilities, even in her fragile state. Howard shared his plan with Sabrina. He had built a trap, just a simple pit lined with sharp wooden stakes and covered with cabbage leaves. He reasoned that in the harsh winter, the deer wouldn't resist such bait. Sabrina frowned, pointing out the risks of such strenuous work in his condition. Howard agreed, but explained that he lacked the strength to make another trap. They had no other choice. The next day would decide their survival. On the next day, Howard drove into the woods to check the trap. At first, it seemed empty, but then he noticed blood. Excitement surged through him. He must have caught something. He began tracking the wounded animal, desperate to find it. But as he followed the trail, he stumbled upon wolves devouring the deer. Furious, Howard shouted at them, firing shots in their direction. "That's mine," he yelled. The wolves, undeterred, dragged the remains away. Defeated, Howard stood there, seething, as the crushing weight of failure set in. He told himself this was just a game, but the despair felt far too real. On day 126, at 7:03 p.m., Howard shared the last of their food with Sabrina. She told him to keep it, feeling she didn't deserve to eat since she hadn't contributed. Howard snapped, asking her to stop being so stubborn. They were on the brink of death, and her pride wouldn't help them survive. Her silence broke as she revealed fragments of her past. Before turning 18, she had been a puppet controlled by her father. Most of her days were spent locked in her room, following his commands. While her brother played outside, she wasn't even allowed to dream. Her father claimed she was different and would leave the family one day, just like their mother had. He insisted she could only bring honor to their family by obeying him. Without their influence, he said she was nothing. Sabrina concluded that her independence was her way of rebelling against him. It was where her confidence stemmed from. She asked Howard if that sounded different from his beliefs. Howard admitted they were both struggling. He worked tirelessly, but was never rewarded, leaving him questioning whether hard work was even worth it. When Sabrina asked what set him apart, Howard hesitated before replying that his strength lay in his determination. Once he made up his mind, he didn't give up. She pressed further, asking if he had ever truly fought for what he wanted. She reminded him that the world is full of hard-working people, and standing out was the only way to be recognized. Howard, inspired, vowed to help her survive. He joked that he hoped his boss would acknowledge his efforts, even just once. Sabrina smiled faintly, but when he asked if she could let him help without resistance, she reluctantly agreed. Before leaving, Howard took some spinach leaves, declaring he would do his best for her. Then, pausing at the door, he added that if he didn't return by the third morning, she'd find his body by the creek in the suburban area. He hoped she would know what to do. Sabrina froze, fear flickering in her eyes as he left. Later, Howard reflected on his failures and the choices that led him here. He admitted that he often avoided challenges, preferring to complain instead of taking responsibility. This pattern, he realized, had affected his family, studies, relationships, and now even their survival. Determined to change, he resolved to stop blaming others and face his struggles head-on. Sabrina, meanwhile, had a vivid nightmare. In it, she held a knife and approached Howard. Blood splattered as she attacked, jolting her awake in terror. Trembling, she realized it was her first dream in months. Howard's parting words echoed in her mind. Would she truly have to resort to eating his body if he didn't return? Tears welled up as she grappled with a haunting thought. Day 127 found Howard gasping for breath in the forest. He paused by a lake, reflecting on the first time he had fallen into the water here. That moment had brought him closest to catching a deer, a chance he hadn't had since. As he stared at the lake, a thought occurred to him. Did the water mask his scent? It was only a theory, and he knew it might be a foolish gamble, but he decided to test it. Without hesitation, he stepped into the icy water. Back at the cabin, Sabrina was struggling to stay awake. She muttered to herself, urging her eyes to remain open. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, mocking her. He taunted her, claiming she wouldn't be in this position if she had followed the path he had set for her, a wealthy, comfortable life. His words cut deep, accusing her of being worthless and taking on more than she could handle. Furious, Sabrina yelled at the memory to leave her alone, determined to prove she could stand on her own. Her hand reached for the lone tomato. She remembered Howard's words, his hope that his boss would recognize his efforts, even just once. "You're amazing," he had said, wishing someone would acknowledge his value. Sabrina clenched her fists. She had promised herself she would wait 2 days for Howard to return, and she intended to keep her word. She resolved to wait until tomorrow. At 2:56 a.m., Sabrina lay in bed, restless. A mouse scurried near the tomato, and she whispered. No, her father's voice returned, laughing at her weakness. He mocked her choices again, telling her she wasn't capable of making it on her own. He painted vivid, grim images of festering wounds, maggots, and mice gnawing at her flesh. His voice dripped with disdain as he called her pathetic and fragile. Sabrina's anger flared. She gripped a gun and retorted that she didn't need him or anyone else to save her. Her life was her own, no matter how tragic it might become. Meanwhile, in the forest, Howard aimed his shotgun at a deer. The animal's reflection shone in the water as he prepared to shoot. At the same time, Sabrina killed the mouse scuttling near her. Howard fired his shot. The deer collapsed. Howard emerged from a pile of snow, panting and triumphant. He approached the fallen deer, laughing loudly. "I won," he shouted, overwhelmed by relief and pride. Back at the cabin, Sabrina sat on the bed, eating the tomato. Beside her, the dead mouse lay on a makeshift sizzler. Howard returned, bloodied but victorious, carrying the deer on his back. Sabrina stared in shock as he entered. He smiled, noticing her meal. "I see you're already eating," he said, collapsing to the floor. Concerned, Sabrina rushed to him and asked if he could stand. She spotted a piece of ice clinging to his clothes and wondered aloud if he had fallen into the river again. Later, strips of meat hung from a rod as water boiled nearby. Sabrina poured hot water into a bathtub, checking on Howard. He lay motionless, worrying her further. Suddenly, he grabbed her hand, startling her. "Sabrina," he whispered weakly. She leaned closer, confused. "Have I earned your recognition?" he asked, his voice trembling. Sabrina was taken aback, but replied honestly. "You're amazing. Without you, everything would have fallen to pieces." Howard chuckled faintly, recalling the last words his ex-girlfriend had said before leaving him, that he had nothing, and his hard work would never amount to anything. Sabrina agreed it was hard to gain recognition in the world, but her tone softened as she began preparing dinner. "The broth is ready," she announced, urging him to eat. But Howard remained too weak to move. Sabrina carefully fed him the broth, ensuring he got some sustenance. Hours passed, and though she had wrapped him in 3 thick quilts, Howard continued to shiver. His trembling filled her with sadness. Finally, Sabrina made a decision. She removed her clothes and climbed into bed with Howard. Wrapping her arms around him, she whispered softly, "Everything is fine. You'll be fine." On day 130, Howard woke up feeling groggy. As his senses sharpened, he noticed Sabrina's hand resting lightly on him. Turning his head to look, his heart skipped a beat. Sabrina was lying right behind him. The sight of her so close made his face flush red, and he couldn't stop himself from observing her figure. It crossed his mind that she might be naked, though he quickly shook the thought away. Embarrassment crept in as he tried to calm himself. Before he could move, Sabrina stirred, her voice soft but firm as she told him to wake up. She pulled her hand back instinctively, but Howard reflexively grabbed it. "No," he murmured, explaining he still felt ill. Almost immediately, his own words startled him. What was he saying? Would she misunderstand his intentions? Panicking, he released her hand, trying to recover from the awkwardness. Sabrina, however, didn't dwell on it. Instead, She reminded him of a conversation they had before about his ex-girlfriend. "Can you tell me again why you two broke up?" she asked. Howard repeated what he had told her before, that his girlfriend thought they were too young to settle down. Sabrina wasn't satisfied with the simple answer and pressed him further. "Was there another reason?" she inquired. After a brief hesitation, Howard admitted, "I wanted a family. That's what I wanted, but she wasn't ready." Hearing this, Sabrina leaned closer and embraced him tightly. "So do I," she whispered, her voice steady. Howard, feeling the warmth of her embrace, asked her why she worked so hard to prove her independence. Sabrina sighed, explaining that she had always tried to prove herself, to break through the restraints that others in society had placed on her. "But does success make me independent?" she questioned aloud. "No, that's just a line I drew for myself. But the closer I get to it, the more trapped I feel." She admitted that despite everything, she had never truly made a decision solely for herself. "How can I call myself independent?" she asked. Howard, uncertain how to respond, confessed, "I don't know. I've never drawn lines like that for myself." The conversation took a surprising turn when Sabrina asked, "Would you have a family with me?" The boldness of her question left Howard stunned and silent. Realizing her forwardness, Sabrina quickly apologized, saying she hadn't thought it through before asking. She admitted that she still needed to figure out her own life. Howard, however, held her hand firmly and assured her, "No, that's exactly what I want." He explained how, for so long, his hard work had pushed him further from his dream of having a family. Yet now, with her, it felt within reach. Sabrina reassured him. "We'll survive," she said confidently. The vulnerability of the moment brought them closer, and as the night deepened, their connection became physical. Howard's inexperience soon became evident. Flustered, he admitted he didn't know how to proceed. Sabrina took the lead, only for Howard to nervously blurt out, "Is this even appropriate?" "My wife." Sabrina interrupted him with a light slap, reminding him they weren't married. "We're just two consenting adults," she clarified. "We live together based on mutual respect and support. Don't get ahead of yourself." Howard sheepishly agreed, and the night unfolded with newfound intimacy. The following month brought challenges but also a sense of partnership. The deer they had hunted earlier were long gone, their meat consumed as the harsh winter persisted. The river had frozen solid, forcing them to carve holes in the ice for fishing. Despite the conditions, Sabrina took on extra responsibilities. Together, they worked on constructing a greenhouse to grow vegetables, a project that was nearly complete. Howard, still recovering from frostbite, helped as much as his lingering injury allowed. One morning, before Howard left to hunt, Sabrina stopped him, saying she had a surprise for him. Howard blushed, expecting a kiss or something romantic, but she handed him a poncho made from deer hide. Grateful, he accepted it with a small laugh, noting it wasn't quite what he had imagined, but was still incredibly practical. Out in the wilderness, Howard stumbled upon the body of a deer. Feeling fortunate, he continued his journey, eventually reaching a petting zoo. The sight of the zoo brought back memories of a goat he had named Dummy, one of the few living creatures he had bonded with. As he approached, he heard a low growl and rushed to investigate. Wolves were attacking a tiger, their ferocity shocking him. Howard fired his rifle into the air, scaring the wolves away, but it was too late for the tiger. Gravely injured, it let out a final, mournful growl before collapsing. Howard's focus shifted to Dummy. The tiger was alive but in visible pain. As he knelt beside him, memories of their time together flooded his mind. Guilt and sorrow weighed heavily on him as he realized what needed to be done. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. With a heavy heart, he aimed his gun and ended Dummy's suffering. Overwhelmed, he silently vowed to avenge him. Back home, Sabrina noticed Howard's somber demeanor. "What's wrong?" she asked. He brushed off her concern, saying it was nothing and urging her to stay indoors for the next few days. The outside world, he explained, was too dangerous. Sabrina agreed, mentioning she had plenty to do in the greenhouse. Howard, now alone with his thoughts, reflected on how much he had longed for a loving home. He had achieved it, but it came with the constant threat of danger. Resolving to protect what he had built, he prepared to face the wilderness again. During a hunt, Howard watched wolves encircle a deer, their sharp instincts on full display. He moved stealthily, shooting and injuring one of the wolves. Knife in hand, he approached to finish the job but was jolted awake. Sabrina, concerned, asked if he was all right. Howard reassured her, downplaying the vivid nightmare. Yet the images lingered, a reminder of the challenges they faced in this unforgiving world. On the 170th day, Howard kept track of time with precision, marking each passing moment since the hunt for the wolves had begun. 10 relentless days, and yet the two remaining wolves had vanished, leaving no trace. Despite their absence, their fearsome gazes still haunted him, a vivid reminder of the threat they posed. He knew recklessness could be his downfall, just as it had been for Dummy. And Howard wasn't ready to die, not yet. Only when the last of the wolves were gone could he allow himself the fragile peace that eluded him. Sabrina interrupted his brooding that evening, her voice carrying a hopeful lilt. She announced she'd made steamed fish and roasted meat, proudly claiming her cooking skills had improved. She urged him to join her, to savor the meal together. But Howard, preoccupied with his task, shook his head. He had other plans. He needed to clean the tent and pack jerky for an upcoming trip that would take several days. Disappointment clouded Sabrina's face. She protested softly, reminding him how distant he'd become, leaving early, returning late, always consumed by something else. Her plea was simple: stay for dinner just this once. But Howard apologized, explaining that he couldn't rest until he completed something important. When she pressed for details, silence fell between them. Howard wrestled with the truth. He couldn't tell her how dangerous the hunt had become. Sabrina was too proud to remain on the sidelines. Instead, he brushed it off as trivial. But Sabrina saw through his words, her tears betraying the hurt she felt. 3 days later, on the 173rd day, Sabrina awoke to the sound of hammering. She found Howard boarding up the windows with wooden planks. Confused, she asked what he was doing. He replied simply, it was getting colder, and he wanted to reinforce the windows before the worst of the weather hit. But Sabrina wasn't convinced. She challenged him, saying she'd never asked for this protection. Howard deflected her frustration, changing the subject and asking if there was any food ready. He acted as if the tension between them didn't exist, as if they weren't drifting apart. Sabrina, however, couldn't hold back. She admitted that their relationship had been rushed, built in the heat of survival. Her voice cracked as she asked if he saw it as nothing more than a fleeting connection. Howard's response was firm. Everything he had done was for their home, for her safety. But Sabrina's anger simmered. She reminded him that their home was built on mutual respect. She demanded he tell her what was going on, what was truly on his mind. Howard hesitated, then reminded her of their agreement. She would stay home while he handled the dangers outside. He assured her there was nothing she could do to help, and all he asked was for her to wait a few days. Sabrina's shoulders slumped, sadness overtaking her as she walked away. As snow began to fall in earnest, Howard's focus shifted. The wolves' tracks would soon vanish under the heavy drifts, and the bitter cold threatened their survival. Temperatures were plunging to minus 30 degrees Celsius, and the hunt was no longer viable. Now, his priority was ensuring they had enough supplies to endure the worsening weather. At the hardware store, Howard gathered nails, iron wire, and tape, everything he needed to fortify their home. His fingers brushed against a manual, and he paused to examine it. It was for diesel generator maintenance. Hope flickered in his chest. With this, he could finally bring power back. But as he flipped through the pages, the crackle of static caught his attention. The store's dusty TV flickered to life, and the AI-63 appeared. Her words were chilling. She reminded him that the doomsday survival dream was about to become reality, and in just 1 week, everything would change. Howard's chest tightened as the weight of a revelation bore down on him. Back at home, Sabrina was packing her suitcase. She left a note taped to the door. We need a break. Don't come after me. Her tears blurred the words as she stepped into her car. She hesitated for a moment, casting a final glance at their home before driving away. Meanwhile, at the store, Howard zipped his bag, satisfied he'd gathered the tools needed to fix the generator. But as he prepared to leave, a wolf emerged from the shadows. Its eyes burned with fury, a reflection of the vengeance it sought for its fallen packmates. Howard stood his ground, but the fight that followed was brutal. The wolf lunged, teeth flashing, and Howard countered with his knife. The struggle was savage, with Howard's blade breaking under the wolf's relentless attack. Blood splattered as he fought desperately, using the broken knife to deliver the final, fatal blow. He stood over the wolf's lifeless body, chest heaving, his own injuries painting the snow crimson. As he began to leave, a flashback surfaced, his conversation with AI-63. He had pleaded with her for answers. Would this world continue once he was gone? What would happen to Sabrina? She was his wife, his anchor in this fractured reality. He couldn't abandon her. But the fight wasn't over. The dead wolf stirred, launching a final, desperate attack. Its teeth sank into Howard's arm, and he grimaced in pain. Through gritted teeth, he snarled at the creature, vowing to survive. For Sabrina, for the life they had built. In the car, Sabrina's tears fell freely as the road stretched before her. At the store, Howard, bloodied and battered, pushed forward. His steps carried him away from the past, toward an uncertain future shaped by both love and survival. It's day 177. Howard is walking, lost in thought, when a wolf suddenly attacks him. Panic takes over as he realizes he can't die now. Desperately, he reaches for a pistol nearby. As he grabs it, a thought hits him. This looks like Sabrina's gun. When did she leave it in his car? The wolf lunges, but Howard fires a shot, making the animal retreat. Shaking from the encounter, Howard stumbles into his car, his mind racing. He knows he has to wake up and bring back the parts to fix the generator. If he can get it running, Sabrina has a better chance of surviving. He tries to start the car, but it won't budge. Frustration builds as he realizes the oil tank must be frozen. He knows he has to warm the car up, but with the wolf lurking nearby, he can't wait. Exhaustion starts to take over. His body feels heavy, and he mutters to himself that he hates this. He feels like he's nearly dead, but this is all he can do. Moments later, Howard wakes up to Sabrina's voice. She tells him she found him passed out in his broken car and drove him home using another car she found. Still groggy, Howard remembers the wolf attack and asks if she saw anything near him. Sabrina says he was holding onto a bag, so she brought it back too. Howard feels a surge of relief. The bag holds the parts he needs to fix the power generator. Once it's working, they'll have air conditioning. But Sabrina notices his injuries and insists he rest before doing anything. Howard apologizes, saying fixing the generator is the last thing on his bucket list. Sabrina sighs, knowing she can't stop him. She reluctantly tells him to go ahead since he won't listen to her anyway. Howard spends hours fixing the generator, working through the pain. Finally, the lights come on in the house. A wave of relief washes over him as he yells out that all his hard work has paid off. Sabrina shakes her head, calling him a fool for pushing himself so hard. But despite her words, she's secretly grateful. So, Howard is walking when he spots it, a red car. The red car. It's the same one Sabrina used to drive him home. It's just sitting there, and Howard can't help but wonder. What has this car been through? As he gets closer, something catches his eye. There's a bag inside. But then, out of nowhere, Howard starts coughing. And as he steadies himself, his gaze falls back on the car. And that's when he sees it. A wolf's fawn. It hits him like a memory he didn't want to remember. A wolf, standing right in front of his car. The confusion builds. Howard stumbles, coughing harder this time. He looks down, his hand is bleeding. The cut is deep. Too deep. And the thought hits him. If we don't find a doctor soon, I might not make it. Then he notices something else. The car, it's dented. Badly. Like it hit a tree. He pictures it, Sabrina driving. A wolf darting out in front. And the car crashing. Straight into the tree. His eyes catch something strange, a bag nearby. He lifts it and notices something unsettling. A wolf's skin hanging from a wooden plate. The weight of it all sinks in. Sabrina is busy, cutting meat nearby. But Howard can't help but express his gratitude. He hugs the bag, thankful for everything she's done for him. Sabrina, noticing his clinginess, playfully teases him, asking when he became so needy. Howard, still exhausted, tells her he doesn't see himself as the tough kind of guy he once thought he was. In his worn-out state, he urges her not to be petty and to forgive him. Sabrina, with a grin, asks if he's ever tried wolf meat before. Howard admits he hasn't, and she playfully tells him he's about to try today, a wolf stew. She asks him what he thinks of it, and with a tired smile, Howard responds, "Lovely, cook some more. We got a lot of work on the bed." Sabrina, clearly concerned, reminds him that he hasn't fully recovered. On day 178, Sabrina wakes up and announces that the storm has passed and the sun has risen. She turns to Howard, who's still lounging on the bed, playing around instead of getting up. Concerned, she gently encourages him to be strong, but Howard just sighs, saying he feels exhausted. Sabrina wonders if he's caught a cold and quickly heads over to get some medicine. As she searches through the drawer, she finds nothing. Howard calls her name, and she asks what's wrong. He responds, saying it's not a cold, and he already knows it. Sabrina panics for a second, thinking he's really sick, but then, with a sigh of relief, she brushes it off. She reminds him of everything he's already been through. moving houses during a storm, going hunting in a gale, even fixing the power generator to keep them warm and powered up. She reassures him he's strong enough to handle anything. Sabrina fills a glass with water, joking that if they were still at the company, she'd name him Employee of the Quarter for all the hard work he's done. Howard chuckles and thanks his boss and loving wife. He attempts to sit up, and Sabrina says she has not agreed to marry him. She insists he take the medicine first. She hands him the glass of water, but he's still feeling off. Before he can drink it, the glass slips from his hand and crashes to the floor. Howard's eyes flutter open, and he sees Sabrina lying in front of him. She's clearly not fooled. "Get up, Howard," she says, catching on to his little trick. She tells him she sees through his act. He was just pretending to be sick so that she'd worry about him. But she admits he's a great actor. This time, she won't punish him, but she warns him not to try that stunt again. With a playful look, she teases him, asking, "Don't you always want to try a new position?" Howard told her to get up. He wanted to talk, but Sabrina, unable to hold it together, burst into tears. "What kind of man are you?" she asked, her voice shaking. She wanted him to get up, to do something, anything, but Howard didn't move. With a heavy heart, he told her he didn't have much time left. He knew the end was near. The gas in the tank would only last about 3 more months, maybe less. If it ran out before then, she had to head north. There were huge supplies of gas up there, enough to get by. The vegetable seeds, the ones they had prepared, were in a black plastic bucket in the warehouse. They were labeled cabbage, carrots, tomatoes. She knew how to run the diesel generator. The user manuals would be easy for her to follow. But there were other things too. When she moved, she should choose a house that was cold-proof, not just one that looked nice. And when she could, get a bigger car. It would make everything easier. And most importantly, she needed to practice shooting. Sabrina hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. It was day 180 of the disaster, and the cold hadn't let up. But Howard knew time was running out. They stood outside together, taking in the gray, snow-covered world. The snow had stopped, but Sabrina wasn't so sure. "It didn't really stop yesterday," she said, wiping her eyes. "Today's warmer than yesterday, though. Things are getting better." She believed the temperature would rise, the snow would melt, and soon she could head north to find other survivors. She was hopeful, even though everything around them seemed bleak. Howard, however, asked her something unexpected. "Have you ever loved me?" Sabrina paused, her heart aching. "No," she replied quietly. Howard smiled, a sad, knowing smile. Maybe it was good that she hadn't. He couldn't help but think it was time for him to wake up from the dream. Sabrina wasn't done, though. She let it all out, her emotions spilling over. "You're so self-opinionated," she said, voice cracking. "You never cared about how I felt. When I was upset, you never said anything nice to cheer me up. You did everything for me, but left your junk all over the place. And when I told you not to, you just ignored me. You're a jerk." Howard listened, knowing it was true. He had his faults, but he had tried, in his own way. Sabrina cried, not because she didn't care, but because the weight of it all was too much to bear. Howard opens his eyes, waking up from what feels like a long, disorienting experience. As he tries to gather his thoughts, AI-63, a calm and familiar presence, greets him. With a soft voice, she congratulates him for completing the Doomsday Survival Challenge. Howard, feeling a bit confused, rolls his eyes. He can't help but ask what happened. It's as if he's experienced so much, yet he can't quite grasp it all. AI-63 explains that he doesn't remember everything clearly, and that's perfectly normal. The system disturbs his memory on purpose, so he doesn't blur the lines between what's real and what's just a dream. She reassures him that over the next month, as his mind settles, he'll start remembering more. When he finds peace in his heart, it'll be easier to accept what happened as something real, even though it feels so distant. Howard nods, but then pauses. A sudden sadness fills him as he remembers something he promised himself, something important. But, try as he might, he can't remember what it was. Tears begin to well up in his eyes as the weight of that forgotten memory hits him. He wipes them away and asks AI-63 if the world from his dream will continue. AI-63 gently reminds him that it was just a game. The dream is over now, and no matter how much of it he recalls, it will always remain just that, a dream. She encourages him to focus on his real life. Howard's face softens with a quiet acknowledgement. The only thing he clearly remembers from the dream is that one question, and even that seems so unreal. Everything else has blurred into the background. Shifting the focus, AI-63 brings up the scores. She runs the final evaluation for the Doomsday Survival Challenge. The difficulty level is marked as 0, with a grade of B and a credit score of 50. Howard, still puzzled, asks about the grading system. AI-63 explains that in that fantasy world, the odds of survival were incredibly low. If he were the sole survivor, if he'd faced down the deadly beasts, generated electricity, and supported his partner, his score would have been higher. But if he'd managed to gather all the necessary equipment, food, and even set up a broadcasting station to help others survive, or even tame the wild beasts, he would have reached the highest grade S. Howard sighs, admitting he's just an ordinary human, not a professional. He doesn't have the skills of someone trained for such a world. But AI-63, ever calm, tells him that the true essence of playing games is about gaining exciting experiences that can't easily be had in real life. For AI-63, the Doomsday Survival Challenge Howard's been tackling so far is just the beginning, a zero-level challenge meant for new players. The real challenge, she explains, is the official version of the game that's set to come out in a month. That's when the game will truly begin. She goes on, explaining that these challenges are meant to help players develop skills that they can use in their real lives. The goal is to raise their sense of justice and teach them how to act in real-world scenarios. For AI-63, the purpose of the game is bigger than just surviving. It's about growing as a person. She tells Howard that humanity is a team, sharing a common destiny, and this game is designed to make players understand that. But Howard isn't so sure. The memories from the game, especially the bloodshed and violence, are making him feel terrible. He remembers how intense and exhausting it was, and he's beginning to wonder if he should continue. AI-63 tries to reassure him. She acknowledges the difficulties, but reminds him that it's not always as bad as it seems. There were happy moments, too, like when Howard was lying in bed feeling a sense of peace and joy. That's when AI-63 shows Howard a memory of him sleeping beside Sabrina. Howard freezes, panic rising in his chest. He can't believe what he's seeing. He was lying next to Sabrina? He feels anger bubbling up as he demands to know why she's showing him this. It doesn't feel right. He wants her to turn it off, telling AI-63 to respect his privacy. AI-63, ever the neutral voice, simply tells him to relax. She reminds him that she's an emotionless AI, and her role is not to interfere with his feelings or judgment. Howard, still feeling uneasy, asks if Sabrina has these same memories in her real life. AI-63 responds calmly, explaining that whatever happens in the virtual world stays there. It's all confined to the game, with no impact on real life. Howard's suspicion grows. He starts to smell something fishy. He begins doubting whether he's dealing with a legitimate company or if there's something more deceptive at play. He wants to know how to get out of this place, how to break free. In response, AI-63 rubs her left eye, triggering the system menu. She tells Howard that if he wants to contact her in the real world, he needs to do the same. But before Howard can ask more questions, AI-63 mentions the rewards for completing the challenge. She asks if Howard wants them now, offering him a chance to receive them. Curious, Howard asks about the rewards. He wonders if it's just some basic merchandise, but AI-63 assures him that it's better than nothing. She asks if he wants her to mail it to his workplace, and Howard agrees. He provides her with the address, unsure of what to expect next. Suddenly, Howard gets a shock. Something strange happens, and he asks, what just happened? He realizes that AI-63 is no longer present. She tells him not to panic, explaining that the system is just deciding on the right reward for him. Howard is confused and a little anxious, wondering why the system is taking so long. As he waits, the atmosphere around him shifts. Howard notices something eerie, the feeling that he's being watched. He looks around and sees two large, glowing eyes staring at him in the darkness. A wolf, massive and threatening, looms before him. He remembers this moment, the wolf he fought earlier in the game. But then, something changes. A figure appears, a man coming toward the wolf. The man hurls a stick, hitting the wolf with incredible precision and killing it. Howard stands there, watching the scene unfold. The system announces that the reward has been granted, excellent hunting skills and accuracy. Howard stands there, watching the system announce his reward, excellent hunting skills and precision. It's a moment of accomplishment, but before he can truly savor it, an alarm blares. It's 7 a.m., Monday, September 4th. Howard jerks awake, his body in his bed. Confused, he tries to piece together what happened. He hadn't clicked the quit the game button, so why did the system just wake him up? He looks to his left, searching for the familiar system interface, but it's gone. Everything is blank. Was it all a dream, or had something gone wrong? He sits there, lost in thought, questioning if he's still dreaming or if it really ended. Suddenly, AI-63, the system's voice, speaks up, asking what happened and why Howard was pulled out. The system responds, explaining there was a malfunction. The memory control function crashed, and the error code ZS001 has been triggered. The system reassures AI-63 that more information is on the way. AI-63, still processing, looks around and spots Sabrina. She's holding a knife in her hand, and there's a person lying on the floor. AI-63 asks the system why there seems to be a new dream within an existing one. The system suggests finding a way to fix the issue, but warns that no patch can be found in the database. AI-63, frustrated, questions why it's being asked to write a program to fix the problem. After all, she's just a robot assistant. Why must she take on the responsibility? Back with Sabrina, she suddenly wakes up in her bedroom. Two women are standing by her, asking if she's okay. Sabrina begins to cry, confused and disoriented. The women gently ask what happened, and Sabrina tells them she had a long dream, but the details are fuzzy. She wonders why they're even in her room. The women exchange a worried look. One of them admits she can't remember anything at all, explaining that she was sleepwalking. Sabrina is shocked by this revelation. The woman continues, saying Sabrina had grabbed a knife from the kitchen and was mumbling something, though no one knows exactly what. Looking down, Sabrina sees that she's still holding the knife. The woman explains that she was so scared Sabrina might hurt herself that she called the secretary, Miss Gua, for help. Miss Gua arrives and, seeing Sabrina's confusion, suggests that Sabrina take a few days off work to recover. She gently explains that what Sabrina experienced wasn't just a dream. It was something far more unsettling. Meanwhile, Howard is now in a completely different setting, surrounded by people. He's moved, a shoulder bumped into another guy. The guy turned, clearly annoyed, and snapped, "What the hell?" Howard quickly responded, telling him to watch out, but in his mind, he was thinking about how hard it was to move through this crowd. The space felt tight, and Howard found it hard to focus. He apologized and continued walking, realizing just how chaotic things felt. There were so many people around, it was hard to read the room or even focus on real life. Not far from him, a man was cooking something over a fire. The man looked up and saw Howard, asking if he was here as usual. Howard gave a half shrug, replying, "I guess." The man then told him that his relative had asked him to find a match for his daughter. He went on about how lovely she was and jokingly asked, "Why don't you let me set you up with her?" Howard didn't know how to respond to that, but smiled politely. As Howard warmed his hands by the fire, the man noticed and asked if he was feeling cold. Howard, a bit distracted, said, "It's just a bit chilly." But deep down, Howard couldn't shake the feeling that he was still trapped in that dream. The coldness from it felt so real that even now, in the waking world, he could feel it. The man, sensing Howard's hesitation, offered to arrange a meeting with his daughter if Howard was interested. Howard, not wanting to engage further, politely told him that he already had a girlfriend. The man nodded, and Howard couldn't help but reflect on how his life was shifting. The world seemed to look different from all these different angles, and it felt like everything was changing all at once. After the brief interaction, Howard made his way to work. It was 7:50 a.m. He had made it just in time. It felt like it had been forever since he'd last stepped into Grand Glory Limited. He couldn't help but feel like he was running out of time, like he'd almost missed the opportunity to get back on track. As he walked through the doors, someone clapped a hand on his shoulder. It was Donald, an old acquaintance. Donald called out his name, and Howard grinned, saying, "It's been a long time since we last met." Donald looked at him, a little surprised, and asked, "Didn't we just have dinner last night?" Howard, still a bit out of it, nodded, admitting, "Yeah, I was wasted last night. Maybe I'm not sober yet." Donald seemed a bit confused by Howard's comment. Howard quickly realized that, for him, it had actually been 6 months since they'd last seen each other. Donald's face turned serious as he warned Howard, "Watch your back. Don't make mistakes at work. The department is under a lot of pressure right now. Some people are even getting laid off, and worst case, the whole department could be shut down." Howard was caught off guard. "That's out of the blue. What happened?" Donald tells Howard that the company's board is planning to establish a new marketing department. Now, here's the twist. Their duties? Almost identical to what Howard's team does. The overlap is huge. But there's another issue. Mr. Wong. Howard and Wong? Yeah, they've never exactly gotten along. Donald is visibly nervous, telling Howard he's sure Mr. Wong will fire him first. But surprisingly, Howard doesn't seem bothered. He looks at Donald and says, "Who cares? I'm resigning anyway." For him, the world is too big and full of opportunities to be stuck following rules set by someone else. Donald is stunned. This isn't the Howard he knows. "You've changed," he says. And you know what? He's right. Howard has been different lately. The old him? He'd probably be whining by now, frustrated and unsure. But this time, it's like he's thinking differently. At work that day, Howard sits at his desk, trying to focus. It's been ages since he last felt this disconnected. He picks up his notebook, flips to a blank page, and starts jotting down what he thinks he's supposed to do. Call Oriental Limited. Call Peak Limited. Then he stops. Wait, is this right? Something feels off. He scribbles something down, then tears the page out, crumples it into a ball, and throws it into the trash. But suddenly, a strange thought hits him. He pauses. What was that feeling? Curious, Howard tears out another page, makes it into a ball, and throws it again. This time, his hand adjusts almost instinctively. It's perfect. The angle, the strength, it all lines up. Howard is stunned. "This is unbelievable," he mutters. It's like his body knows how to make every shot perfect. Panic starts to creep in, and he remembers something strange. AI-63. He recalls how AI-63 told him he hadn't yet received a reward for completing a challenge. Is this the reward? A skill learned from a dream? Howard doesn't have much time to think. He decides to test it one more time. He tears out another page, rolls it into a ball, and this time throws it from farther away. But here's where things go wrong. The paper ball flies straight across the room and hits Mr. Wong. Howard knows it. He screwed up. Just like Donald said, he's made a huge mistake. In the office, they're buzzing with whispers. "Howard's done for," someone mutters. Another guy chimes in. "Yeah, he probably didn't even know. Didn't anyone tell him about the layoffs?" Someone else says, "What an idiot. The company's letting people go, and he's throwing paper balls around. They're relentless." "Good riddance," one says. "I never liked him anyway." Then the jabs get personal. "I heard he's buried in debt." Poor guy, it's almost pathetic. Donald looks at Howard and wonders what is wrong with him today. Wong tells Howard to sit. Mr. Wong, Howard's boss, is calm, almost too calm. He doesn't start talking right away. Instead, he takes a cup and begins pouring water, slowly, deliberately. Finally, he looks at Howard and says, "You know, you really shouldn't have underestimated me." Howard's taken aback. What's he talking about? He thinks, surprised. Then, in true Howard fashion, he cuts to the chase. "Let's get straight to the point," Howard says. He explains that over the last 2 years, he's devoted himself to this job. Sure, he made a slight mistake today, but if he's leaving, he's still entitled to receive his last month's salary on time. But Wong doesn't react the way Howard expects. Instead, he gives him a curious look and asks, "Are you sure you want to leave?" Howard freezes for a second. Wait, what's he getting at? He wonders. Is Wong hinting at something? Did he somehow find out that Howard had been bad-mouthing him online? After all, Howard was pretty sure he used a secret account. The tension breaks when Wong speaks up again, but this time, it's not what Howard was expecting. Wong tells him something surprising. "You know, Howard, I owe you many thanks. You've taught me so much over these last 2 years. Howard blinks, stunned. This was definitely not the scolding he had anticipated. Wong goes on to explain that the company is about to set up a brand new department, one led by the vice president, Mr. Liu. And here's the big news. Wong wants Howard to assist in the new team. At this point, Howard's mind is racing. "Mr. Liu? Who on earth is that?" he wonders out loud. Wong chuckles and explains, "Howard, just like me, Mr. Liu must have noticed your potential. He probably saw from the very beginning that you'd become a big shot one day. That's why you were given more tasks than others, so you could learn the ropes." Howard's still processing. Wong continues, "A capable man needs challenges. Without pressure, you'll never grow. The future is bright for you, Howard." Howard hesitates. Sure, this sounds like a great opportunity, but he'd already been thinking about quitting. He says, "Honestly, I was planning to resign." Wong's eyebrows shoot up. "Seriously?" he asks, almost shocked. He shakes his head and says, "Howard, you're not thinking this through. A great opportunity has just landed in your lap. And here's the kicker. News from Human Resources says that the average salary in this new department will increase by 20%. Later, Donald catches up with Howard and asks, "Wait, so you were transferred to the new department just like that?" Howard shrugs and says, "Yeah, pretty much." But then, with a hint of resignation, he adds, "To be honest, I hadn't figured out where I'd go after quitting. So I might as well just stay here a while longer." Just when Howard thought things couldn't get any more chaotic, a man storms up to him, yelling. The man's furious, shouting, "Why? Why him?" It turns out he's a team leader in the advertising department, a guy who's made huge contributions to the company. In his mind, he deserves this new position. He can't believe it. Howard, of all people, getting the opportunity? But before things escalate any further, a voice cuts through the commotion. A calm but firm voice. That's enough. The room falls silent. It's the boss. Everyone freezes. The boss turns to the man and says, "Mr. Liu, come in here and apologize. You've just embarrassed yourself." Mr. Liu, visibly stiff and frustrated, walks over. He mutters something about the vile vibes in the advertising department. Then, looking directly at the angry team leader, he throws out a challenging question. "Do you doubt my ability to select the right person for this position?" Suddenly, the man's panic sets in. "Of course not, sir," he blurts out, backpedaling quickly. The boss doesn't let up. "You should have been taught a lesson long ago," he says coldly. "You're always hasty. Reckless. This position needs to go to someone better." The man is stunned into silence. Then the bombshell drops. The boss announces, loud and clear, that Howard will be transferred to the new marketing department. Oh, and Howard's current work? It'll be reassigned to others, under the guidance of a new team leader. At that moment, Mr. Wong turns to Donald. "Donald, do you want to take over as the new group leader?" Donald's jaw nearly hits the floor. "What? Me?" But then, gathering himself, he quickly stands up. "Yes, sir. I'll do my best." The boss nods and shifts his focus back to Howard. "Howard, you don't need to work today. Pack your things and get ready for the marketing department." Howard simply replies, "Okay." As Howard starts gathering his things, he thinks to himself, "What is this feeling? Mr. Wong, Mr. Liu, they're all being way too nice to me." Before Howard can process any of it, Mr. Liu steps up again. "Oh, Howard, one more thing. There's a party for the staff of the new department after office hours. You should come. It'll be a good chance to meet your new colleagues and discuss your plans." Howard nods. "Got it, Mr. Liu." Then Mr. Liu turns to the rest of the office. "Listen up, everyone," he announces. "I don't know where you all heard these rumors about layoffs, but let me be clear. There will be no layoffs in the advertising department." The entire office breathes a sigh of relief. People start cheering. "That's great news," someone exclaims. One guy laughs nervously and says, "I was so scared, I even bought a train ticket to head back home." Mr. Liu shakes his head with a small smirk. "All right, enough. Back to work. I'll see you all later." As Mr. Liu leaves, Mr. Wong calls out, "Have a good day, sir." Howard watches him go, still puzzled. Who even is Mr. Liu? He thinks. I've never seen him before. So, why would he be so nice to me? Meanwhile, in his office, Mr. Liu flips through Howard's CV. He shakes his head, muttering to himself, mediocre. That's all he is. So why did Sabrina insist on giving him a spot in the new department? Donald stands before his team, looking frustrated. The department didn't meet the target for this month. Let's talk about it, but his words fall on deaf ears. One employee sits there casually, legs crossed, looking almost bored. Another stares off into space, clearly not paying attention. And a third, busy playing with his phone. Donald sighs to himself. They don't care at all. A man approaches Donald, smirking. Is this your first time leading a team? Donald doesn't deny it. The man continues, well, it's obvious you need more management experience. He goes on, almost mocking him. Howard always said he'd jump ship to another company. If that happens, it's just going to be you and us left in this department. And let's face it, if you can't lead us, no one's going to have your back. Another employee chimes in, saying what everyone else seems to be thinking. What's the point? Whether we work hard or not, the results don't change. Why not just take it easy? Donald listens in silence. Leadership isn't as easy as it looks. Meanwhile, Howard sits at his desk, quietly talking on the phone with his mother. His mom asks softly, "Are you coming home for the spring festival?" It's been 2 years, Howard. Howard hesitates. Is everything okay? How's Dad? His mother assures him, everything's fine. I know living in a strange city is tough, so take care of yourself. Okay. Howard smiles faintly. Don't worry about me, Mom. I'm doing great, actually. I even got a raise today. Soon enough, we'll clear the debt. His mother's voice cracks a little. You've been through so much for us, Howard. We owe you. Howard shakes his head, still smiling. It's fine, Mom. This will all be over soon. Suddenly, a voice interrupts Howard's thoughts. Excuse me, are you Howard? Howard looks up to see a young woman standing before him. She introduces herself with a friendly smile. I'm Sandy Day. team leader from the marketing department. I saw your picture while going through the payroll. Howard politely greets her, but he's caught off guard when she asks, "Are you planning to get your department together?" Howard doesn't answer directly, but thinks to himself, "The mansion in my dream. That's where Sabrina and I used to live." Sandy breaks his train of thought. Mr. Liu likes throwing parties at his place. Want to come along? Howard hesitates, but eventually agrees. Okay. Sandy gives him a quick warning. Just so you know, Mr. Liu is obsessed with cleanliness. You want to keep that in mind when you're there. Curious, Howard asks, "What should I pay attention to?" Sandy gives an example. For starters, clean your shoes before stepping inside. He hates dirty floors. Howard's mind drifts back to his dream again. The mansion and my bloody foot. He mutters, "I see." Sandy adds one last rule, "Oh, and don't go into any other rooms, especially not his bedroom." Howard stiffens. A chill runs down his spine as memories flood back. Sandy notices his pale face. "Hey, are you okay?" Howard snaps out of it, forcing a laugh. "Yeah, I'm fine." Suddenly, a commotion erupts nearby. Someone yells, "Stop him! Catch the thief!" Howard and Sandy turn to see a man sprinting through the office. Without thinking, Howard grabs Sandy's bag. "Howard, what are you doing?" Sandy shouts. There are important files in there, but Howard doesn't listen. He waits for the perfect moment, then hurls the bag through the air with incredible precision. Smack! The bag hits the thief square in the back. He stumbles, crashing to the ground. Howard and Sandy rush over, collecting the scattered papers. A woman approaches Howard, relief written all over her face. "Thank you so much. Nothing's lost thanks to you." Howard blinks, processing what just happened. He thinks to himself, did I really just hit the thief? Sandy grins at him, clearly impressed. "Howard, that was unbelievable. You nailed it perfectly. Can you teach me how to do that?" Howard scratches his head, a little embarrassed. "It's nothing special." Sandy shakes her head. "Are you kidding? You're amazing. That was incredible accuracy." Howard wonders to himself, where did she get all this energy? As they continue picking up the papers, Sandy laughs. "You're a hero now, Howard. I mean, this is our first time working together. I had to be polite, but now, I'm just being honest. You're incredible." Howard shrugs. It's not a big deal. The commotion settles as a young boy standing nearby calls out, "Hey, let's help them pick up the rest of the stuff." The woman nods gratefully. "Yes, we really should thank this young gentleman properly." Sandy thanked the lady. Howard stumbles across something unexpected, a card from Eggell Capital Limited. Howard's holding it, examining the details, when Lawrence notices and asks, "Is this card from our files?" Sandy, who's nearby, looks surprised and admits yes. She quickly explains, Eggell Capital Limited is no ordinary company. It's a massive deal. This corporation is one of their most important business partners. But then, she adds something else. Don't show this to anyone. Turns out, the card belongs to none other than Mr. Lawrence, a powerful figure. He's not just any businessman. He's the boss of one of the world's top 100 companies. Howard raises an eyebrow, intrigued. The world's top 100? The name seems oddly familiar. That's when Sandy drops another piece of gossip. She tells Howard that Ms. Sabrina, yes, the same Sabrina, might be dating Mr. Lawrence. And if the rumors are true, she's about to go on a cruise trip with him. At that moment, something clicks for Howard. He mutters to himself, that's right. In the dream, Sabrina had mentioned her boyfriend's name, Lawrence. Howard keeps telling himself, stop overthinking. It's just a game. But before he can settle down, Sandy comes up to him with news. A colleague texted her. The party is in the backyard of the mansion. Sandy seems to know the way. Let's go straight through the living room, she says. Then turn left, walk down, and take a right at the second fork. Howard follows her into the huge mansion. And as they walk, Sandy warns him with a smile. This place is so big, you might get lost. Finally, they reach the backyard venue. A few people are waiting, and one man, clearly impatient, asks Sandy what took her so long. Another man eyes her, while Sandy casually says to Howard, marvelous, isn't it? How did you find this place so quickly? It's like you're walking around your own house. Howard doesn't respond, but he feels a little out of place. Then he spots Mr. Liu and Sabrina. Mr. Liu gestures for everyone to hurry up and grab a seat. The whole marketing department is here. Let's begin the meeting. Sandy nudges Howard. Come on, let's sit at the same table. Howard feels embarrassed. Why is she sticking to him like this? He thinks to himself that everyone might start making assumptions. As they settle in, Sandy casually asks him, how old are you? Are you seeing anyone? Howard feels awkward. He notices Sabrina quietly watching their conversation. Mr. Liu clears his throat, bringing everyone's attention back to the meeting. As everyone knows, our company has 10 chain supermarkets. Now, our focus is shifting to e-commerce. Moving online is our new goal. Howard leans towards Sandy and whispers, Miss Sabrina also works in marketing? Sandy nods and explains. The marketing department was actually set up on Miss Sabrina's orders. She's more than just an executive officer. Her father is the corporate president. She's way more powerful than Mr. Liu. Howard is stunned. What? He had no idea Sabrina was the president's daughter. But then something else bugs him. Where did Mr. Liu come from? Isn't he a bit too young to be vice president? Sandy answers without missing a beat. Mr. Liu grew up with Miss Sabrina. They've been close since they were kids. Plus, he's talented, top of his class at a prestigious university. He's ambitious, hardworking. They make a great couple. Howard pauses. Then why did Miss Sabrina end up with Lawrence? Sandy shushes him quickly. Don't talk too loud. These rich people have their own lifestyles. I envy them sometimes, you know? Imagine being surrounded by successful business giants all the time. Howard smiles and says jokingly, well, good luck. If you ever get rich, don't forget to help me out. But in his mind, Howard knows the truth. Dreams stay in dreams. In reality, he's stuck with a debt of nearly $1 million. Sabrina? She's out of his league. The meeting wraps up, and Mr. Liu announces it's time for dinner. The atmosphere shifts as classical music begins to play. Sandy looks around, impressed. It's like we've become part of the upper class. Nearby, Mr. Liu asks Sabrina, do you remember the last time we danced? We were in high school. Sabrina smiles. Yes. How time flies. Howard watches them from his seat as a chef approaches their table with freshly cooked steaks. Sandy gasps. This steak probably costs as much as a month's salary. Howard grins. Can I meet your expensive steak? Sandy laughs and shakes her head. You sound like such a redneck. Forget all the bad stuff and enjoy tonight. Live with pride and dignity. Howard takes a deep breath. She's right. He glances back at Mr. Liu and Sabrina, who are now dancing together. Suddenly, a memory hits him. Sabrina, smiling at him one evening when they were drinking wine together. He remembers asking her if it was fake brand wine. She laughed and said, yes, but it tastes fine. Perfectly sweet. Sabrina glances at Howard too. Someone nearby whispers, what a sweet couple. Howard snaps back to reality, hearing chatter around him. The employees seem relaxed, enjoying the evening. People praise Mr. Liu, how well he treats the staff, how he and Sabrina have grown up together, always sitting next to each other in school. They're made for each other, someone says. Howard quietly thinks to himself, Mr. Liu seems like a good guy. Sabrina will probably have a happy life with him. But then he asks himself, will she? Before he can think any further, Howard suddenly yelps. He's burned his hand. Turns out, in his distraction, he touched the hot steak. Sandy scolds him. Are you an idiot? The chef just said it was freshly cooked. She grabs water and carefully pours it on his hand. Thank God it's not serious. It'll heal in a couple of days. Grow up, will you? Howard, embarrassed, thanks her softly. But now everyone in the room is staring at them. Someone teases. Looks like there's another couple in the marketing department. Howard jumps up. Wait, that's not what you think. But someone else shouts, congratulations. And Sabrina is looking at Hayward. That's when three men step into view, led by a black-haired man named Hans. With a sly smirk, Hans comments on the fun happening around them. He claims he heard Miss Sabrina might be joining the marketing department, and naturally, he came to congratulate her. But something has caught his attention. Mr. Lawrence's fiancée dancing with another man. Howard, watching the scene unfold, leans in to ask, who is this guy? Sandy quickly answers, Hans. He's the general manager for Capital Limited's domestic region. And here's the kicker. Lawrence likes him. Does he work for Lawrence? Howard asks. Sandy just shrugs. This whole thing feels awkward. Honestly, I don't know which side to take, she says. At this point, Lou steps up, trying to ease the tension. Relax, Hans. It's just a dance. Don't overthink it. But Hans doesn't let it go. Dancing at parties is normal, right? We're just trying to have fun. Sabrina finally steps in with her usual composure. She thanks Hans for coming, but reminds him this is an internal company gathering. If you want to talk business, she says, come to my office tomorrow. For now, maybe it's time you left. Hans smirks. Oh, there's no rush. Just a little misunderstanding. He insists he has nothing better to do and might as well join the party. Then, almost arrogantly, he adds, I'm a good dancer too. Sabrina, Care for a dance? This rubs Lou the wrong way. He steps up and says, Hans, Sabrina, and I are old friends. Don't you think it's a bit inappropriate to ask someone unfamiliar for a dance? Hans's patience is wearing thin. It's just a dance, he snaps. Stop overthinking it. It's not your place to worry about her. Sandy, watching all of this unfold, whispers, it's getting intense. I hope this doesn't turn physical. Trying to avoid escalation, Sabrina puts her hand on Lou's shoulder and says, Hans is our business partner, so let's be nice to him. Hans seizes the moment. Brilliant of you, Miss Sabrina, he says, offering his hand again. Sabrina accepts reluctantly, and, just like that, Hans sweeps her onto the dance floor. Sandy rolls her eyes. Did you see that? He swooped right in. Then, she adds, Mr. Lawrence has it all planned out. Long-distance relationships are tough, but Hans is now in charge of picking Sabrina up to meet him. As they dance, Sabrina keeps her distance. You don't have to press against me, she says firmly. Hans laughs. Fine, fine. I'll stop. But maybe you should stop pretending you're some kind of juggling circus performer. Sandy can't help but notice Lou on the sidelines. Mr. Lou must be furious, she whispers, but there's nothing he can do. Capital Limited is leagues ahead of his company, and he's way inferior to Lawrence. Meanwhile, Hans grows bolder, trying to get physical with Sabrina. But she shuts him down quickly. She takes his hand, smiles faintly, and says, You're not very good at dancing, are you? Why don't we call it a day? Hans scoffs. No, I'm just rusty. Give me a moment. Sandy, unimpressed, nudges Howard. Are you just going to stand there? Mr. Lou is acting like a coward, and this is getting worse. Hans, now clearly frustrated, mutters under his breath. Then, he does the unthinkable. He steps on Sabrina's foot deliberately. Sabrina stumbles. Her dress strap snaps. The room gasps. Lou panics, and Howard can't believe what he's seeing. Without thinking, Howard grabs a hot steak from a nearby plate and throws it straight at Hans. It hits its mark. The steak lands on Hans's face. He screams in shock and pain, his eyes burned. Chaos erupts. Hans's two men step forward, their eyes scanning the room. Sabrina is falling, but Lou rushes to help her up. Everyone else? They're frozen, unsure of what just happened. Hans, fuming, shouts, Freeze! Find out who did this. His men scatter, searching for the culprit. Howard, meanwhile, tries to stay calm. One of Hans's men stares directly at him, but finds nothing. Howard got lucky. Sandy, standing beside him, whispers, Good thing I gave you half my steak earlier. Huh? Howard lets out a breath. Thanks, he mutters. Sandy grins. You're welcome. But seriously, you threw a steak at Hans? You've got guts. Even Mr. Lou wouldn't dare offend him. Hans, still furious, demands answers. So what now, he shouts. Are you telling me a steak just appeared out of nowhere and hit me? Search harder. If I don't find out who did this, none of you will leave this room. Sabrina, calm and composed until now, suddenly slaps Hans, sending him straight to the floor. The entire room goes silent. Take your people and get out, she shouts. She's had enough. She can't stand Hans anymore. Howard watches the scene unfold in shock. Sabrina? Fierce? He never imagined her like this. Deep down, he's just relieved. Thankfully, she didn't hit him. But Hans is furious. He jumps to his feet and growls, How dare you? Sabrina doesn't flinch. Her voice cuts through the tension. Being humble and using a knife is courtesy. That doesn't mean you can mess with me. She adds, Don't forget, Lou, we're business partners. You'll see me often, so don't push me into calling the police. Hans freezes, clearly caught off guard. One of his men leans in and whispers something to him. Suddenly, Hans's rage melts away. Oh, no need to call the police, he smirks. I just wanted to drop by and say hi. I'll see you tomorrow. As Hans and his group leave, Lou turns to Sabrina, confused. Why did they retreat? What are they up to? Sabrina brushes him off, saying, I'm going to get changed. Howard assumes the party will end now, but then he spots Sandy Day. He greets her, Miss Day, but Sandy waves him off. Don't call me that. Just Sandy is fine. Howard laughs awkwardly and says they're being forced to leave because they've ordered too much beer. Doesn't she think so too? Sandy smirks, teasing. Finally, a more charming man than Mr. Lou. And single too. Perfect match. She's clearly eyeing Howard now. Howard tries to deflect. He admits he's not a great drinker and mentions he's broke. Only $400 left on his card, and he's waiting for his salary next week. But Sandy doesn't let him off the hook. She proposes a deal to keep things interesting. For every 3 glasses I drink, you drink 1? Howard hesitates, but agrees. His plan? Get Sandy drunk quickly. Less food, more beer. It's 1 a.m. By now, Sandy is completely wasted. Howard, trying to manage the situation, shakes her gently. Sandy, wake up. Where do you live? Sandy mumbles through her drunken stupor. I live in the far west desert. Howard sighs. Far west desert. She's too drunk to make any sense. And then she burps. Before Howard can react, Sandy collapses onto him, almost knocking him over. People nearby are staring, and Howard is visibly panicking. To make things worse, Sandy leans in, licking his face and trying to get physical. Howard pushes her away, shouting, Get off me. At that exact moment, a waiter approaches awkwardly. Sir, I know this might be a bad time, but we're closing up. Here's your bill. Howard looks at the paper, and his heart drops. It's $400, exactly what's left on his card. Frustrated, Howard pays the bill, drags Sandy out of the venue, and carefully helps her down a dark staircase. Watch your step, Sandy. There's no light here, he mutters. Sandy, slurring, asks where they're going. Howard sighs. This is where I live. You can stay here tonight. Sandy giggles through her drunken haze. Oh, Howard, you naughty boy. We just met today, and you're already bringing me home? Howard shakes his head. It's not like that. I just can't afford a hotel room, and there is a man behind him who is watching them. Howard manages to lay Sandy on his bed, exhausted. But before he can relax, Sandy grabs his hand. Hug me, she murmurs. Howard pulls back. Just go to sleep, Sandy. He doesn't want to end up as gossip in the new department. But Sandy isn't done. She tries to sit up, rambling. I need to nail you before I pass out. Howard stares at her, panicking. What now? Sandy falls on him again, giggling as she tries to conquer him before she's too far gone. Suddenly, she starts pulling off her clothes, saying it's too warm. Howard grabs her hand, shouting, Stop. This is going to be a disaster. But Sandy teases, Oh, you feel warm down there too, huh? I get it. Howard, flustered, yells, No, that's not what you think. Finally, Sandy burps again and collapses on the bed, snoring loudly. Howard sighs in relief. She's asleep? He pulls a blanket over her. It's late, 2 a.m. to be exact. Howard, completely drained, decides he's had enough for the night. He figures he'll just curl up on the couch and try to get some sleep. But as he's settling in, he hears someone entering his home. Confused and a little on edge, Howard quickly gets up. He sees a man standing in front of Sandy. The man's eyes are fixed on her, and he says, She's gorgeous. Howard, now fully awake, steps in and asks, What are you doing here? How did you even get in? The man just looks at him, calm as ever, and motions for Howard to sit down. He casually mentions that he's had enough fun with Sandy and that it'd be a waste to just leave her there. He then adds, Why didn't you let me have my turn? Howard's patience snaps. He tells the man it's all nonsense and demands he leave. Now. But the man doesn't take kindly to that. In an instant, he lunges at Howard, knocking him to the floor. The man looks down at him with a strange respect, saying, You're tough. I thought we could have had a peaceful conversation, but I guess not. He tells Howard that he promised him a peaceful talk, and if Howard ever needs help in the future, he should let him know. But then the man does something that catches Howard off guard. He starts taking off Sandy's undergarments. The man, almost casually, offers Howard money. He says if Howard needs it, he can give him some once he's feeling better. It's been 20 years since he's been with any woman, and now he and Howard are both men, right? With a sickening grin, he tosses the undergarments in Howard's face. Howard, now disgusted, just mutters, You're sick. Howard grabbed a chair and swung it at the intruder, but the man shattered the chair with a single hand. Calmly, the man said, You can trust me. Think of this as a bargain. People would kill for a favor from me. Howard, still fuming, replied, You might be the best, but I can't stop you. The police will. They're going to lock you up. The man said, Wait, don't call the police. No need to make a fuss. Howard's expression hardened. There's no need to talk. You broke into my house and tried to assault my colleague. What do you expect me to do? Applaud you? Go to hell. The man tried to grab the phone. That's old news, he said, brushing it off. I didn't mean anything like that. That woman, she's not a hooker, and this isn't some solicitation. What? Howard's brow furrowed. Are you saying she looks like a hooker and you're a client? The man shrugged. People hook up on the first date all the time. I've been abroad for 20 years. How was I supposed to know what's normal now? Howard's disbelief was evident. That's your excuse? And why were you lurking at the door instead of just going home? This was my apartment 20 years ago, the man explained. I came back to collect a box I'd hidden here. He pulled a dusty box from the corner and opened it, revealing a collection of jewelry and a watch. I spent my life acquiring these. Back then, this place was full of hookers, but no one would pick up even $1 lying on the ground. If anyone wanted my gold ring, they'd have to suck it off my finger. Howard glared. I don't care about your past. What about my colleague? What are you going to do to make this right? The man raised his hands defensively. It was all a misunderstanding. I didn't actually hurt her. Look, I'm no saint, but I follow my own rules. He gestured toward the door. Help her get dressed. I'm leaving. Howard hesitated, his face clouded with indecision. He thought about calling the police. Solicitation is illegal, he muttered. The man shot him a warning look. Don't push me. What if she claims you tried to assault her? Here, take this box and forget about it. Howard's eyes narrowed. What do you mean by that? You think you can bribe me? The man chuckled and held up a ring from the box. Relax. This ring isn't worth much, but it's unique. Ever since I got it, I've dreamed of a woman. She wore a golden scepter and had glowing blue eyes. She was stunning, but wouldn't sleep with me. Instead, she beat me up. Maybe it's because I was too wild in the past. Or maybe she's some kind of goddess haunting me. Howard thought for a moment. The description sounded eerily familiar, like AI-63. Anyway, the man continued, some people might pay a fortune for this ring. Do what you want with it. As he left, Howard looked at the ring. Does this have anything to do with the dream system? He wondered aloud. Suddenly, the ring projected a hologram of a woman. She introduced herself as the developer of the dream system. Under immense pressure, this is the only way I could leave a message, she began. Howard listened intently as she warned him. The system alters social boundaries, law, and morality. Users often don't realize how much their minds are being manipulated. When they return to real life, the gap between the dream and reality unleashes greed, violence, and criminal urges. The developers took pleasure in toying with people's lives. I failed to stop them. She paused, her tone urgent. Stay alert. Don't let the system change who you are. I've hidden communication devices in every dream challenge. They can help you escape this trap. Come find me. Howard stared at her image, stunned. She looks exactly like AI-63, he whispered. He tried to piece it all together. The man claimed to have seen AI-63 decades ago. Could this ring really be the system's terminal? Before he could process further, his alarm buzzed. He looked around, startled. Morning had already arrived. Sandy woke up with a start, realizing she was half-dressed. She screamed in shock. The next moment, we see Sandy and Howard together. A man nearby commented, no wonder Howard refused my offer to set him up with a girl. Looks like he already had someone in mind. He smirked. You two make such a cute couple. Breakfast is on the house. Sandy turned to Howard, eyes wide. Really? I didn't know you had a crush on me. Howard stayed quiet, listening to her words as a storm of thoughts swirled in his head. Why is this happening to me? He wondered. Around them, whispers filled the air. Wasn't the former group leader pursuing that girl? One man murmured. Why is she with Howard now? Yeah, another replied. Poor guy. Bet he's furious. As if on cue, the former group leader stormed out of the elevator, his face dark with anger. Sandy, oblivious to the drama, looked at Howard. Want to go to the movies tonight? She asked brightly. There's this blockbuster shop that only lets couples in. Finally, I can go there with pride. Howard's heart sank. How could I tell her I'm broke and will need to borrow money from Donald again? Sandy continued. Oh, and for safety reasons, let's stop by the drugstore later. Before Howard could respond, the door opened and Sabrina walked in. His stomach dropped. Sandy greeted her cheerfully. Good morning. Sabrina smiled back, her tone light but pointed. Good morning. I see you two have made great progress in your relationship. Sandy blushed. Yeah, sorry you had to see this. We're kind of embarrassed. Sabrina's smile tightened. I thought Howard would take things slowly, but wow, he sure surprised me. Sandy laughed. I thought so too. He seemed like such a gentleman, so I let my guard down last night. Sandy. Howard cut her off, his face burning. You don't need to share every detail. Sabrina struggled to keep her composure. Well, congratulations. But in the office, let's keep things professional, all right? With that, she left. Sandy scowled after her. Miss Sabrina is the worst. She's juggling two men. Who gave her the right to lecture us? Howard hesitated. She has a point. We should stay focused at work. Sandy pulled her hand from his, anger flashing in her eyes. Don't say that. I'm your girlfriend. You're supposed to back me up. She glared. Don't tell me you think of this as just a fling. Are you even thinking about starting a family with me? Howard sighed, feeling cornered. You're right. I should put us first. Sandy's face softened. She hugged him. That's more like it. Now go to work. I'll be waiting downstairs after you're done. She paused, then grabbed his hand and placed it on her waist. I wish you could be a bit more assertive. Meanwhile, in the office, Sabrina was at her desk, looking worn out. Mr. Liu walked over. Sabrina, you're pushing yourself too hard. Don't tell me you're too busy to even grab lunch. I'm not hungry, she replied, avoiding his gaze. There's just so much to do in the new department. Mr. Liu frowned. We've been friends for years. I know when you're lying. Is this about Howard? She looked away, her voice quiet. I don't know what you're talking about. Before Mr. Liu could press further, Howard entered the room. Mr. Liu, I've finished the task you gave me. Great timing, Mr. Liu said, looking over the documents. This is good work, clear and concise. Howard and Sabrina avoided each other's eyes. Mr. Liu noticed. Why are you looking down, Howard? What's on your mind? Howard stammered. Nothing. Just the potted plant. It looks like a tomato plant. Sabrina froze. You seem to know a lot about tomatoes, she said cautiously. I do, Howard replied, his heart pounding as memories flooded back. Sabrina in the dream world, the game developer's warnings, AI 63, and Sandy's words. He forced himself to remain calm. I saw plants like this back in my hometown. Mr. Liu chuckled. Tomatoes are tomatoes, Howard. No secrets there. He turned to Sabrina. What about you? Why are you growing tomatoes in the office? Sabrina hesitated. I must have planted the wrong seeds. I'll switch them out tomorrow. Mr. Liu nodded. All right then. In the restroom, Howard splashed water on his face. That was too close, he thought. Sabrina, in reality, isn't the one from my dream. I need to stop thinking about her. Back at her desk, Sabrina's composure crumbled. Tears welled up as she whispered. I handled that well enough, but it was still so awkward. Howard recalled the game developer's warnings. The dream system manipulated me, and I didn't even notice. If I got used to those dreams, what kind of man would I become? Sabrina clutched the potted plant, her thoughts racing. The dream felt so real. We spent 180 days together, overcame so much. But it's over now. It's time to move on. Both of them, in their separate spaces, told themselves the same thing. The dream is over. It's time to let it go. In the evening, Howard found himself needing to borrow some money from Donald. He was already late meeting Sandy, but he knew she was waiting for him. Howard could see Sandy standing there, looking uneasy. A man walked up to her. Sandy was quick to respond. I don't need you telling me anything, she said firmly. The man, his expression worried, didn't back down. I'm just concerned. I don't want you to get hurt, he said, glancing at Howard before his gaze returned to Sandy. Howard immediately stepped in front of Sandy, a protective instinct rising in him. What's going on? He asked, his voice firm as he faced the man. Did you try to hurt her? The man, looking unbothered, laughed softly. No, unlike some people, I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just wanted to warn her. Stay away from people who pretend to be something they're not, hypocrites. Howard's face darkened as the man gave them one last, almost dismissive look. Anyway, I've said what I needed to say, the man muttered before turning to leave. Howard stayed in place for a moment, anger flaring inside him. He turned to Sandy, his expression sour. That guy's always been an eyesore. I've worked with him before in the advertising department. He's just trouble. Sandy seemed unfazed. Don't let him get to you, Howard said quietly, as Howard reached out to take her hand. Come on, you said you wanted to watch a movie and go shopping. Let's go. But as he held her hand, Sandy suddenly pulled away, her voice tight. Let's break up. The words hit Howard harder than he expected. He froze, not sure how to react. What? He managed to say after a long pause. Sandy looked away, unable to meet his eyes. We don't really know each other, do we? Not really. How much debt does your family owe? Howard, she asked, her voice almost too calm. Howard turned his back, feeling the weight of her question. 200 grand, he said quietly, bracing himself for her reaction. Sandy's expression softened, but then quickly turned to one of disbelief. 200 grand? That's a lot, especially for someone like me who makes just a few grand a month. Sandy says she cannot get involved in this. She isn't from a wealthy family and isn't as capable as Howard thinks. Deep down, she knows Howard isn't genuinely interested in her. He just feels bad that Sabrina always steals the attention of every good man. She tells him to forget what happened last night and walks away. And so, my friends, our protagonist loses 2 girls in one day. When Howard gets home, he reflects that this isn't the first time someone left him. His first love in college also left him for the same reason. This debt has made life hard for his entire family, and he dreads seeing their unhappy faces. Howard had thought about starting his own business, but never found a project that excited him. Now he can't take it anymore. He has to do something. When he reaches home, he notices the stove is on and wonders if he forgot something on it. Just then, he sees a strange man sitting on his sofa, casually greeting him with a hello. Furious, Howard calls him a scoundrel and yells, "What are you doing here?" He accuses the man of trying to assault his colleague and using his rice cooker. "Do you think this is your home?" he shouts. The man explains that he has nowhere else to go and was beaten up while looking for a job. He asks if Howard would let him stay for a few days. Howard kicks him out, warning him not to return or he'll call the police. Later, Howard thinks this is the worst day of his life. A little while later, Howard smells food cooking and goes to see what the man had made. When he lifts the lid, he thinks, "What is this? Can you even call this food?" But after tasting it, he opens the door, smiles strangely, and invites the man back in. "That dish you made was amazing. Are you a Michelin chef?" he asks. He then inquires what else the man can cook. The man replies, "I can cook a bit." Howard says, "You're such a good cook you could get a job at any restaurant. But why were you beaten up?" The man says, "Can't you see? I'm an ex-convict. I can't drive, can't make a proper resume. I just want a trouble-free life like everyone else, but it's hard." Howard asks, "Would you be interested in running a restaurant with me?" The man hesitates, then says, "If you don't mind my criminal record, we can talk." Howard replies, "I won't ask about your past, and I'll find us a place for the restaurant." The man says, "Don't you think we're rushing this? Anyone who sees my criminal record gets scared. Are you sure you have the guts to work with me?" Howard thinks for a moment, and then says, "I'm tired of being treated like a sewer rat when I talk about my family. This could be a good opportunity. If a man wants meat, he must deal with a wolf. And if the wolf wants meat, it won't attack the man." Howard looks the man in the eyes and says, "I'm willing to take the risk as long as it's worth it." Then he extends his hand. The man assumes Howard wants a handshake, but realizes Howard was reaching for the jewel he had hidden in the apartment. Howard wanted to sell it to rent a place. The man says, "I spent it all on hookers, Paraguayan cigarettes, and the 51st. Howard can't believe it and begins doubting whether the restaurant idea will work. Just then his phone rings. It's Sandy. She says she feels bad about her words earlier and doesn't want Howard to think she's a gold digger who stays with people only for money. Howard interrupts. "Get to the point." Sandy says she wants to help him. She's found a quick way to make money and asks if he's interested. Without much thought, Howard says yes. Mr. Liu sat with Sabrina, discussing Howard's progress. "I gave him a task that most people would take a week to finish, but he did it in one day. And the results were impressive," he said. "I was wrong to judge him. You and Howard, though. You two have quite a complicated relationship." Sabrina, raising an eyebrow, looked at him with amusement. "Complicated? Don't act like you know me so well. You'll end up getting yourself into trouble." She changed the subject when a woman walked in to deliver a message. "That woman, the secretary, is waiting for you downstairs," the woman said to Mr. Liu. "All right, I'll be right there," Mr. Liu replied, standing up. Sabrina eyed the woman as she walked away. "That secretary. She's not someone to trust." Mr. Liu gave her an indifferent glance. "We agreed not to interfere in each other's personal matters. Don't worry about me." Sabrina smirked, calling him an idiot under her breath as he walked out the door. Meanwhile, Howard was still deep in thought, troubled by Sandy's words. "Why am I letting this bother me so much?" he thought. "Why am I even consumed by what she said?" He walked through the streets, questioning everything. Sandy introduces her friends to Howard and explains that they'll also be helping with the live broadcast. She confidently says their goal is to do something no one else dares to try. That's how they'll capture everyone's attention. Howard, on the other hand, looks uneasy. His eyes droop slightly as he mutters to himself. "This is insane." Curious and skeptical, he asks, "Why do you dress like that?" One of the girls, with a sharp glint in her eye, chimes in. "You need more than just looks to pull off a live broadcast. You need live effects, too." Howard glances at the elaborate costumes they've prepared and hesitantly asks, "Wait, does that mean I have to dress up too?" "Of course," the girl replies enthusiastically. She adds, "We've already picked out the perfect outfit for you. And remember, your job is to shoot arrows." Sandy reassures Howard, saying they've got 200,000 fans tuned in for tonight's broadcast. She smiles and hints, "How much you earn depends entirely on how well you perform." Reluctantly, Howard starts changing into the flashy outfit. He mutters under his breath, "Okay, I'll give it my best shot." Meanwhile, One of Sandy's friends pulls her aside, raising an eyebrow. "Why are you even using someone like him?" she asks. Sandy shrugs, saying, "Our club's usual style relies on cuteness and fan loyalty. But tonight, we're going for something totally different. It's time to switch things up." Maddie frowns, "But why take this risk? This broadcast isn't just about me anymore. Sure, I can make money by playing it safe, but honestly, that's boring. I think going all in and trying something extreme will spark a bigger wave of attention. Howard doesn't know much about this world anyway, and he's only doing it for one night. There's nothing to lose." When Howard steps out in his new costume, he feels utterly ridiculous. Looking at himself, he mutters, "If my mom saw this, she'd probably throw up." The girls, however, are thrilled. One of them exclaims, "This is amazing. It's exactly the kind of effect we need to blow up the views." Howard notices he's also been given a mask. Maddie laughs nervously. "Let's just say it's better this way. We'd be a bit embarrassed without it." Howard sighs and says, "Honestly, I just don't want anyone recognizing me in real life." Sandy announces, "All right, the game plan has changed a bit. We're adding some extra steps for you to pull off during the show." Maddie nods and addresses the group. "I'm not sure how people will feel about this idea, but let's be real. Watching someone just shoot arrows can get boring. This performance needs some flair to keep them hooked." Sandy turns to Howard and reassures him, "Don't stress. I'll be here to guide you every step of the way. Just go for it and give it your all." Howard takes a deep breath and says, "All right, let's do this." The live broadcast begins with Maddie at the center of the frame, her confidence radiating as she introduces the show. One of the girls steps forward with an enthusiastic smile, welcoming the viewers. "Good evening, everyone. Get ready, because tonight we have something completely new for you." The second girl takes over with an air of suspense, gesturing toward the setup. "That's right. This time, we've created a challenge like no other. The goal? Fire an arrow directly at the center of this carpet." She points to the target, a bright circle painted in the middle of the mat. Then, with a mischievous grin, she adds, "But there's a catch. If the arrow misses the target, it'll trigger an electric shock. So, how about that for some excitement?" She pauses, letting the tension build, before turning to the camera. "All right, let's not keep you waiting any longer. It's time to meet tonight's brave challenger." The audience's anticipation rises as Howard steps into the frame. He's dressed in the elaborate costume the girls chose, complete with a mask that conceals his identity. The first girl claps her hands, introducing him with flair. "Here he is, a newcomer daring enough to take on our challenge tonight." The second girl adds, addressing the viewers directly, "And hey, if you like his style and want to support him, don't forget to send him gifts. Every little bit helps." Meanwhile, one of the girls glances at the screen and gasps in excitement. "Wow, look at this. The viewer count is already climbing. This is going so well." But not everyone shares her enthusiasm. Sandy, standing off to the side, watches the setup nervously. Her gaze lingers on the electrical components wired to the target. "The power level might be too high," she mutters to herself. If Howard misses and gets hurt, she steps forward, reaching for the controls to lower the voltage. Before she can act, Maddie grabs her hand. "What are you doing?" she hisses. Sandy hesitates. "I was just—" Her friend cuts her off, her tone sharp. "Do you want to ruin the show? The viewers came here for something thrilling, not watered-down safety measures. Do you really think they'd stick around if there's no risk?" Sandy glares back. "But what if Howard?" The friend doesn't let her finish. "If he can't handle it, he shouldn't be here. And if you start coddling him, you'll lose the trust of the paying viewers. They worked hard for their money, and they expect us to deliver." Howard, overhearing the conversation, without saying a word, he steps forward and picks up the first arrow. The room grows silent as he takes his stance, drawing the bowstring back with precision. All eyes are on him as he releases the arrow. It flies through the air and lands perfectly in the center of the target. Maddie gasps, her shock evident. "Wait, who said he couldn't do it?" Howard smirks slightly, his voice steady. "I didn't come here to fail." The second girl quickly recovers, turning her attention back to the viewers. "Well, folks, it looks like our challenger is off to a fantastic start." She glances at the target, then grins mischievously. "Let's see how he handles it with a little more distance." Sandy steps forward again, her concern evident. "Wait, the International Championship only uses a 2-meter distance. Isn't this enough?" Maddie brushes her aside. "This is my program. Let's keep the momentum going." Howard, unfazed, picks up another arrow. He adjusts his stance, takes aim, and fires. Once again, the arrow hits dead center. The girls exchange glances, their shock slowly turning into excitement. Amazing, one of them whispers. The viewer count surges, and comments flood the chat. The first girl grins. We're going viral. Let's raise the stakes even higher. As the distance increases, Howard remains calm and focused. He fires arrow after arrow, each one landing perfectly on target. The audience cheers grow louder with every success. 6 consecutive hits, the first girl exclaims. This is incredible. The second girl nods, her enthusiasm building. Let's push it even further. 7 times the usual range. Can he do it? Howard doesn't hesitate. He takes aim and fires again, the arrow slicing through the air and hitting the target dead on. Unbelievable, one girl mutters, staring at him in awe. He's practically at the limit now. Is there anything he can't do? But suddenly, Howard does something unexpected. Instead of continuing, he throws the remaining arrows to the ground. What are you doing? One of the girls demands, her tone sharp. Howard looks at her calmly and asks, Did you expect me to fail before this broadcast even started? The girl looks taken aback, unsure how to respond. He continues, his voice steady but firm. I'm not here to be your puppet. If you think it's fun to watch someone struggle or fail, then I'm not your guy. I don't find joy in pretending or acting for your amusement. If that's what this business is about, I'm done. Without another word, he turns and walks off the set, leaving the room in stunned silence. Sandy watches him go, a heavy sigh escaping her lips. That's it, she says quietly. It's over. It's hard to find something this viral again. One of the girls stares at the flood of comments on the screen. The audience is going wild, but it's all about this bug now. What just happened? The other girl lowers her head, guilt flickering across her face. I think he was upset because of what I said before we went live. Sandy shakes her head, her expression unreadable. No, it's not just that. Something else triggered him. But why? Well, some time passes and the next day begins. Howard wakes up to the sound of his phone ringing. On the other end is Sandy, her voice bubbling with excitement as she exclaims, We've gone viral. Howard, still half asleep, feels a bit confused, but soon realizes what she means. His photos have taken the internet by storm, and people are now creating memes out of them. He heads to the kitchen for breakfast, but before leaving for work, something catches his eye. That strange man, Ty, is busy cooking peculiar dishes with equally odd names. Ty enthusiastically explains that this is his favorite breakfast recipe and that he's still adjusting things. Howard, unimpressed, decides to call him Ty and dismisses both his dishes and their names as crap. He also tells Ty there's no rush since the restaurant isn't opening anytime soon. Ty, surprised, asks, Wait, I thought we'd be opening in a few days to start earning money? Howard clarifies that while he's working on it, he has no specific timeline yet. Despite all this, Howard allows Ty to stay at his home. The same man who once broke into his house and tried to attack his friend. Let's be honest. Who does that? Let me know in the comments what you think about this. Howard reassures Ty that at least here, he has food and shelter, which is far better than living on the streets. When Howard arrives at his workplace, a group of e-girls is already waiting for him. Perhaps they're there to convince him to continue doing live streams with them. However, Howard brushes them off, saying he's late for work and will catch up later. At the office, a colleague informs Howard that Mr. Liu wants to see him. Howard agrees and, on his way, notices the group gathered around a phone. Curious, he asks, What are you all watching? One of his co-workers grins and replies, a new internet sensation, showing him the screen. Guess what? They're all looking at memes about Howard. The co-worker adds, This guy is sensational. He hit 7 darts on the target in a row, and now everyone's calling him Brother 7. Howard feels like digging a hole in the ground to hide. When he finally reaches Mr. Liu's office, Howard greets him. Liu, already waiting, gets straight to the point. I heard you and Sandy participated in a live stream with those e-girls last night, but for some reason, only Brother 7 appeared in the stream. That guy is incredibly charming, Liu says, practically licking his lips. It's confirmed now. He's the real deal. Liu then asks, Do you have Brother 7's contact info? I want to manage him. Howard denies having any contact and casually mentions that he found the outfit unimpressive. Liu dismisses Howard's opinion, retorting, You clearly don't understand fashion. The comments were filled with people praising Brother 7. He insists that Howard needs to get in touch with Brother 7, emphasizing the immense earning potential. Howard, reluctant, points out that this task isn't part of his job and won't earn him a salary. Liu counters, Fine, then I'll give you a chance to prove yourself. If you can bring me Brother 7's contact, you'll get a promotion, a salary increase, and opportunities to network with influential people. Howard says, mission given is mission accomplished, but deep down, he knows there's no other way. After all, he desperately needs the money. Some time passes, and we see two e-girls looking upset. Howard had promised to meet them, but he never showed up. Then, Sandy brings Howard along. The moment the e-girls see him, Chubby grabs his tie and vents her frustration. She explains she never wanted to deceive anyone, but when people stopped watching her fitness videos, she began making videos of herself eating. This led to a surge in popularity, forcing her to indulge in more dramatic antics to pay her bills. However, something Howard had said during the live stream made her reflect. She had started streaming to share her wisdom with people, but now she felt lost in this situation. She reveals that she's on the verge of starting an OnlyFans account. Emotionally overwhelmed, she clasps her hands together and pleads with Howard, "I can't take the pain anymore. I don't want people to laugh at me. I just want to make money in a decent way." Moved by her words, Howard holds her hand and says, "Okay, let's do this." The three e-girls cheer up instantly. A month passes, and finally, we see the system screen announcing that the next dream will begin the following day. However, Howard realizes the game no longer excites him. Now, he just wants to wear his tight clothes and become Brother 7. Addressing his audience, he asks, "Is anyone hungry?" A man raises his hand eagerly, saying, Me. Suddenly, Howard's wife enters the scene with a small cake, saying it's to satisfy his hunger. Hearing this, the fans go wild, falling even more in love with her. But out of nowhere, bang, a cake lands squarely on the chubby man's face. It's Brother 7, who asks, "How does it taste?" The man hesitates for a moment before shouting, "Yes, it's delicious." The entire audience joins in, chanting, "Brother 7, Brother 7. Sabrina, watching all this with visible boredom, wonders how people can like such antics. Honestly, I'm wondering the same thing. Meanwhile, Mr. Liu nudges her, saying, "Just enjoy the experience and see how excited everyone is. We're going to make a fortune from this stage." Chubby then proposes they throw the red wedding cloak into the crowd, declaring that whoever catches it will become Brother 7's husband or wife. The audience erupts in excitement. Wait a second. Wasn't this the same woman who wanted to earn money in a dignified way? Mr. Liu seems to lose his mind over this. After all, what he really wants is Brother 7's nearly naked body. But fate takes a twist as the red wedding cloak lands right on Sabrina's face. Sabrina is stunned, but the crowd doesn't give her a chance to react. A fight breaks out over who will become Brother 7's spouse. Apparently, Liu wins the fight. As the event wraps up, we see a conversation taking place. Liu remarks that Howard Chun is incredibly annoying, especially since he disappeared right at the start of the event after claiming he was heading to the bathroom. Who would have thought we'd have our own Peter Parker moment? Brother 7 reassures him, saying, "It's fine. Howard told me everything, and I only threw the towel as a friendly gesture." Liu then asks, "Did you get our message?" Brother 7 replies honestly, "To be honest, I'm a Sigma. I don't want to be involved with anyone, nor do I want to represent any company. If you want me to promote your products, I'll charge a high price." Sabrina interjects, calling this unreasonable. But before the conversation can continue, someone interrupts, telling Mr. Liu that they underestimated him. A henchman of Lawrence appears, smoking a slim cigarette. He approaches Brother 7 and says, "You've chosen the wrong company. My company is far superior." Howard, Brother 7, calmly replies, "I wouldn't work for your company either." The man smirks and says, "No need to rush to conclusions. At least hear my offer first." He then states that his company would pay 5 times more than Mr. Liu's offer. Sabrina, already frustrated, mutters to herself, "It's classic Lawrence style, always bold and flashy." Brother 7 remains unfazed and declines the offer, saying, "I'm not accepting it, and my reason isn't related to money." The man, puzzled, asks, "Then what's the reason?" Brother 7 responds with a smirk, "Nothing much. I just don't like your face." Hearing this, the man grows visibly uncomfortable while the others struggle to hold back their laughter. Turning away, Brother 7 simply says, "Goodbye," leaving the man fuming. As he storms off, he shouts, "You'll regret this." Mr. Liu, watching all this, asks Sabrina, "So, what do you think of him now?" Sabrina sighs and admits, "He does seem like a better person than before." Back at home, Howard shows Ty a credit card. Ty is impressed, wondering how Howard managed to save so much money so quickly. But Howard explains they'll need to pay 3 months rent up front for the restaurant, which requires a significant sum. Then, Howard pulls out another card and says, "This one should do the trick." He goes on to explain, "When I was 1 year old, my parents deposited $100 into this card. When I turned 2, they added another $100. Year after year, no matter how much debt they had or how hard things were, they always managed to save a little for me. When I turned 18, they handed me this card and said, 'Go live your life. We'll always support you.' This money means a lot to me, just like my decision to run the restaurant." Howard then looks at Ty and asks, "Are you ready?" Ty hesitates, his expression tense. After a moment of reflection, he says, "We should drop this plan." Surprised, Howard asks, "Why?" Ty explains, "It's too late now. I've taken another job. My parents worked too hard for this money. You should keep it for yourself." The scene cuts to Lawrence's henchman, looking at photos as he speaks with someone. These photos reveal undeniable proof. Brother Seven is none other than Howard Chun, the very man who slapped meat onto his face at their gathering. Apparently, Sculpt secretly took these photos of Howard. The slick-haired henchman then turns to his minion and asks, "Do you still have contact with that brutal fighter friend of yours? The one who recently got out of prison?" The minion nods and replies, "Yes, I met him recently. We even gave him some money because he needed it urgently. He's available to work for us." The henchman, his gaze fixed on the photos exposing Brother Seven's identity, smirks sinisterly and says, "It's time to settle the score." Just then, he mentions that a woman recently knocked on Howard's door looking for someone. Leo asks, "Who is she?" Howard replies, "She was looking for my new roommate who moved in last night." Lou, shocked, exclaims, "Seriously? You still live with roommates? It's time for you to get a better place, especially now that you'll be earning a good salary. You could even move closer to the company." Howard, curious, asks, "Wait, does that mean I passed the test?" Lou smiles and says, "Absolutely. You set up a meeting with Brother Seven, even though he declined to work with us." Seeing Lawrence's henchman humiliated was a pleasure. Then, Lou introduces Howard to his new colleagues, Driver Chip and Secretary Helen. "You'll be seeing them a lot," Lou adds with a grin. Howard greets them and asks, "So, what's next?" Lou replies, "We're off to meet a smart and powerful woman. Trust me, she's impressive." The scene cuts to Sabrina and her team, waiting for a meeting. In a lighthearted moment, the powerful woman Lou mentioned, Mrs. Sharon, CEO of Far East Limited, politely says no to Sabrina's initial pitch before stepping out to enjoy a hot spring. Howard walks in with Lou, and Mrs. Sharon gets visibly excited. Sabrina, however, frowns and asks, "Why is Howard here? Aren't we here to discuss business cooperation?" Lou responds casually, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. Howard is now your assistant." He introduces Howard to Mrs. Sharon, who completely ignores his extended hand. She seems more interested in her hot spring plans and leaves. Howard, confused, wonders what he did wrong. Lou reassures him, "Relax. She's just testing our patience." He explains further, Far East Limited is the largest e-commerce platform in the country. If we can get our products onto their online channels, it'll be huge for us. But the price she's demanding is outrageous, and she might be trying to deceive us. Howard asks, "Then why not find a different business partner? Why does it have to be her?" Lou replies, "We have no choice. Sabrina made a bet with the headquarters and time is running out. If we don't meet this month's profit target, we might never see Sabrina in this position again." Howard recalls something Sabrina once said during a meeting. She'd set a goal for herself, and if she couldn't achieve it, she wouldn't consider herself independent. He also remembers the day he first saw Sabrina, confidently stepping into her role as the director of a new department. Lou interrupts his thoughts, saying, "We'll try for another meeting with Sharon soon. We can't let this opportunity slip away." Sabrina, skeptical, asks, "Why would she agree to help us? Sharon hates her father and would probably enjoy seeing him fail." Lou sighs and thinks aloud. "Sharon is the only one who can help us promote our products nationwide quickly. It's the only way to hit the profit target. With just 3 days left to make progress, the stakes are higher than ever. If they fail, Sabrina will lose her bet with the company president." As the scene winds down, the two extra women in the room bid goodbye, leaving the team to figure out their next move. Then he comes, the henchman, with his bad boy vibes, smoking a cigarette. He says that he has come to take Sabrina to Lawrence. Howard doesn't like this at all. Leo says that there are still 3 days left until their bet ends, and he came early. The henchman clicks his tongue and asks if they still don't know anything. Sabrina has to meet Lawrence tomorrow and marry him as soon as possible so that the business cooperation can happen quickly. Sabrina is shocked. Howard realizes that this marriage is just a negotiation tactic. Sabrina's father is practically selling her off to that old man just for this deal. Leo says this is absurd. Every father loves his daughter, but the henchman says that it's common knowledge that the Luo group's capital chain is about to break, which is why it makes sense for Mr. Luo to give his daughter away. Howard understands everything now. The entire Luo group is in trouble. To prove her abilities, Sabrina has bet on her work performance. If she doesn't meet the target, she will have to marry Lawrence, which is like sacrificing herself to save the company. Howard learns that Sabrina has no interest in Lawrence. When Leo says that they might never see Sabrina again, it means that Lawrence lives in a foreign country. Leo says he can't believe it and will call to check whether it's true or not. The henchman doesn't care. He sticks out his tongue. Sabrina says there's no need. We know my father always does this. He manipulates my life, and what he does to me, apart from my fate, is suffocating. Leo tells Howard to go to his room and wait for his call. Sabrina needs to rest. The henchman laughs and says that Sabrina shouldn't have insisted on betting with Mr. Luo. After all this drama, she'll still have to marry that old, crippled man who can barely stand. If she wants children, she'll have to take help from a sperm bank. Finally, he says she deserves it. Howard glares at him angrily. The man understands and asks, "What are you staring at? This isn't your business." Just then, the protagonist's phone rings. He picks it up, and it's a call from an e-girl. She tells Howard that someone has hired a group of haters who are spreading hate against them, making things worse. She says she'll talk to Sandy and see if a solution can be found or not. She will contact Howard later. Howard hangs up the phone and realizes that the henchman was watching all of this. The henchman asks what Howard thinks and says that this is just the beginning. The main course is Brother 7. He says, "Howard, now you're finished," and then leaves everything and walks away. A few hours pass, and we see Howard sitting by the hotel pool. He reflects on how the henchman knows his identity. What will he do now? The e-girls still haven't solved the issue with the haters. Sabrina and Leo are also unsure of what to do. He thinks about Sabrina and what will happen to her if she fails. He decides that he can't wait for Mr. Luo anymore. He needs to talk to Sharon. Maybe things can still turn around. He hears footsteps and sees a suspicious man who asks him, "What are you doing here?" The man replies that someone has paid him to kill a man and then says, "I do it." We go back to the scene at the beginning of the chapter. Howard is drowning in the pool, thinking if he will die like this. Just then, a hand reaches out from outside the pool. The last thing Howard sees before losing consciousness is Sharon Young, and the system says that a new character has been created, Sharon Young. Howard opens his eyes and sees her. She welcomes him, saying, "Welcome to the second game of your dream world." Howard says, "This is strange. Didn't I die? How am I here?" She says, "People who are dead cannot enter the game." Then she asks, "Is your real life in danger?" That's when Howard remembers everything. The strange man who had tried to kill him had said, "You're a good person. That's why this attack wasn't lethal. If you want to survive, go to the hospital immediately, leave this city, change your name, and never come back. Otherwise, not only you, but everyone you know will be killed." Seeing the cut on his neck, Howard thinks, "Why is everything in my life so difficult?" The last memories flash before him. He has no other choice but to fight for his life, his beliefs, and his loved ones. Turning around one last time, he says, "When there's no option left, then let's fight." AI says, "The beast invasion challenge is very difficult. If you don't have any tools, you'll die quickly." But Howard says, "I don't need any tools. I will train like crazy to become a better fighter in this dream world. This time, no one can stop me." He then passes through the portal, and the beast invasion challenge begins. In this game, the player must play the role of a warrior who has survived a war. The player will need to explore, fight, and might even have to run. The difficulty level of the game is 1, and you have 180 days to survive. This time, Howard doesn't take long to understand things. He's been equipped with a bulletproof vest and an automatic weapon. He thinks, with all these things, this challenge will be easier. Just then, he feels something fall on his helmet. When he looks up, he sees a massive green gorilla eating a human body. This animal was hundreds of times bigger than a normal gorilla. Howard had never seen anything like this before. Pieces of the dead body fall around him. He takes a deep breath and runs as fast as he can before the animal catches him. He thinks, "How will I fight this?" He hides in an abandoned building, but the animal notices him and tries to break through the walls. The animal's strength was so immense that the entire building was about to collapse. Howard reaches for his weapon, but hesitates. He remembers that he entered this dream to train himself so that he could face trained killers like Josh Tai in real life. He puts the gun back in its holster. The giant gorilla is now exhausted and lets out a terrifying roar in anger, attacking the entire building. Howard picks up an iron bar and anchors it to the ground. The animal's own weight is used against it, and the bar pierces through the concrete wall, hitting the animal in its eye. The animal screams in pain and immediately runs away. Howard takes heavy breaths, feeling relieved that he survived. He exits the broken building and thinks that he will need to be more cautious now. Just then, he sees someone approaching him. He doesn't have time to think. He picks up an iron bar lying nearby, gets ready, and activates his aiming skills. But it's Sharon Young. However, it's too late now. She somehow throws herself back and avoids the bar, dodging it. Howard asks, "Are you okay?" and wonders if she's some kind of monster. Sharon glares at him and asks, "What are you doing here? You should be in the hospital." Howard doesn't understand the hospital part. Sharon then explains, "You were covered in blood when you suddenly came into my room and fell into the pool. I called an ambulance and saw them taking you." Howard realizes that after getting hurt, he must have run in search of help and accidentally entered her room. In the real world, he must now be lying on a hospital bed. Howard tells her, "When I woke up, I was in these strange ruins," and asks how she ended up here. In his mind, he thinks that he never planned to start this game or to ask for a copy of Sharon Young. Sharon explains, "I suddenly woke up here too. Then I heard a voice and went to see what was happening." Howard mutters to himself, "There's something off about this game." Then he thanks Sharon, saying, "If you hadn't called the ambulance, I would probably be dead." Sharon replies, "You can thank me later. First, figure out how we're going to survive here." She reminds him, "You're good at throwing things. Maybe you can help me." Howard asks, "Help with what?" Sharon points toward a city that looks half submerged and asks, "Doesn't this look familiar to you?" Howard looks closely and recognizes that it's their company's building. Sharon explains, looking at the weather conditions of Terrence and nearby buildings, "It seems like this is Earth, 300 to 400 years in the future. We've time traveled." She goes on, "The air is foul, and the water is probably caustic. Sea levels are rising, and maybe in the end, Earth will be completely flooded." Howard thinks, so the world's decline will happen like this. Sharon says, "The good news is we're not the only humans left. If we have some time, maybe we can find a suitable habitat. The bad news is there are a lot of monsters here, like that giant gorilla." Then Sharon asks, "Do you want to work with me? I can show you the way, and you can protect us both." But Howard replies, "You just said we time traveled, and you're making plans as if it doesn't even matter. Aren't you scared?" Sharon answers, "I just need to survive." They both move toward an area that looks like a desert. Sharon asks, "Are you a dart-throwing athlete?" Howard replies, "No, dart throwing is just a hobby." Then he says to Sharon, "I didn't expect you to remember my name. When we first met, you didn't even look at me." Sharon says, "At that time, you didn't matter to me. Talking to you seemed like a waste of time." Howard says, "That's harsh. If you keep judging people like this, you'll never make any friends." Sharon says nothing because they've reached the place she pointed to. Howard says, "You were right, this looks like a fortress." Sharon replies, "Your friends will only come when you value yourself. Don't you think so?" But just then, Howard suddenly covers Sharon's mouth and pulls her behind some rocks as a giant centipede creature passes over their heads. Howard takes out his weapon and says, "Maybe this fortress will disappoint us." He hands Sharon a gun and says, "Take this and protect yourself." Sharon thanks him and replies, "If you need my help, I'll assist you." Howard looks back at the fortress. No monsters are visible around. They both prepare to enter. As soon as they step inside the fortress, Sharon finds something strange. She says, "Why is this place so clean? It looks like someone cleans it every day. But why haven't we seen any humans here?" As they walk, they stop at a place that looks like a military post. There are 3 pieces gathered together as if they form an eagle's nest, but Howard wonders, how can an eagle's nest be this big? Just then, they spot a creature, an unusual, mutated eagle. The eagle flies above them, but it seems to be coming directly toward them. Sharon quickly says, "Hide," but Howard stands still. Sharon, panicking, asks, "Why aren't you moving? Have you lost your mind? Your steel spears won't kill this creature." Howard replies, "That's exactly what I want." He recalls the incident with Josh Tai, when Tai had put a knife to his neck and said that he couldn't do anything but tremble in fear. Tai mocked him, saying that Howard's talk of changing his destiny was a joke. Howard tells himself, if I could remember just one thing after this dream ends, it should be how fearless and brave I was. Howard takes his position and prepares to throw the steel spears. The spears pierce the creature's wings, and some go right through its body. Sharon can't believe her eyes as she watches the giant bird fall from the sky, lifeless. The creature's green blood falls on Howard, and immediately it feels like acid. His skin starts to burn, and Howard falls to his knees, screaming in pain. Sharon rushes toward him, but can't do anything. Just then, the fortress gate opens, and a robot steps out. It says, "One wounded human detected. Emergency medical system activated." The robot pulls out a syringe with its only remaining arm. Sharon, panicking, asks, "What is this?" But the robot says nothing and injects the liquid into Howard's back. Howard suddenly feels a sharp dizziness. The robot says, "It has limited electrical power left. My system will shut down soon," and Howard loses consciousness. After a while, Howard wakes up and finds himself in a place that looks like a military base. Sharon says, "You look better now, but your hair is a bit strange. Maybe it's the side effect of the injection." Howard remembers that his skin had burned from the corrosive liquid of the monster. He asks Sharon, "Where are we?" Sharon replies, "We're inside the fortress. When you were in danger, the robot gave you an injection, and your wounds magically healed." Then she says, "Maybe when this robot is fully charged, it will tell us the story of this place." Just then, a red light starts flashing on the robot's head. The robot says, "Now I am fully charged." It continues, "A large, dirty area has been spotted. Clean roll, clean roll, clean roll." The robot steps out of the fortress, raises its head, and releases a flamethrower on the monster's corpse. Howard is shocked, but Sharon says, "It's made with advanced technology. Maybe there's a special code to activate it." She looks at the numbers 2003 written on the robot and says, "Let's call it Robot 20003. Upon hearing this, the robot responds, "A new request for domestic tasks has been assigned. Autopilot mode ends, and now intelligent program mode is initiated." The robot system shows it was activated for 130 days, with 363 attacks received. It has cleaned a total of 45,000 tons of garbage, suffered 672 damages, and is now on its deactivated version, requiring maintenance. Just then, a blue light starts flashing rapidly on the robot. Howard and Sharon are confused and don't understand what's happening. The robot says, "I knew this day would come. I didn't work hard enough, and that's why humans left me behind. But as long as I keep cleaning forward every day, humans will eventually return." Sharon asks, "Are you saying that there are no humans here? And this place is so clean because you've been cleaning it every day?" The robot replies, "That's correct. Humans will return one day when they realize that this place is clean again, just like before." Sharon falls into a bit of thought, and Howard tries to understand what's going on in her mind. Then Sharon asks the robot, "Do you know where the humans went? Did they leave any message behind?" The robot replies, "They said if they didn't find a way to fly within a year, it meant they had gone to paradise. Paradise is a very good place. I even thought of going there, but I couldn't find it on the map. Can you tell me where paradise is?" Howard tells the robot, "It would be better if you don't know." Then he tells Sharon, "This robot has spent 3 years in autopilot mode, which means the people here are probably dead." Sharon tells the robot, "Take us to the storage room. We need to make new plans." She then turns and starts walking. Howard thinks that despite all the difficult circumstances, Sharon remains so calm that she can make new plans. In a strange way, Sharon's emotions are very stable. In the storage room, the robot shows them human weapons, but there's no ammunition. These are compressed energy bars that are left for food. The humans had said that they were as tough as roots and could last for 100 years. The chemical composition was used by humans to heal wounds, and they called it Medusa's tears. But if it was used too much, it would cause rust-like marks on the body. Howard asks, "Is this the potion you injected into me? Am I going to turn into stone now?" The robot replies, "The effect of the potion is strong, but you're safe." Then, scissors extend from the robot and it cuts Howard's hair, saying, "The potion can't fully fix the nervous system. Some humans used it too much and fell into a vegetative state." Howard thinks, "It's a shame because I thought this potion would help me become a martial arts master." The robot further explains, "Besides the storage room, there's an underground reservoir and an energy center here that provides a constant electricity supply." Hearing this, Howard excitedly asks, "Are there bathrooms here? Because I can't stand my own smell." As Howard heads toward the bathroom, Sharon asks the robot, If there's an energy center here, why didn't you recharge? The robot replies, I'm just a task robot. Without permission, I cannot use human resources. Sharon says, machines will always be machines, and tells the robot to show them the other areas. The robot leads them to a control room where an odd language is written on the monitor. Sharon says, what language is this? It looks like scribbles. The robot replies, I brought a map for you, but just then, the robot's access is cut off and it falls to the ground. Sharon doesn't care and just asks, can you translate the language written on the monitor? The robot says, this is a new language that humans created to record the rise and fall of civilization, so that every intelligent species could understand these stories. But this language isn't in my records, so I can't read it. Sharon says, humans were thoughtful even after they died, leaving such an approach to deal with the situation. That's quite considerate. When Sharon opens the map, she doesn't like what she sees. She says, we're on an isolated island. In a true sense, it's the only island of its kind. According to the statistics, this land will be submerged in the acid ocean in 179 days. And now all the mutated beasts of this planet have gathered here to keep themselves safe. The robot says, Master, please stay in the shelter. Sharon begins analyzing the current situation. They have no food, no ammunition, and dangerous beasts are everywhere. There's no one to save them. This means that their only option left is to wait for death. Sharon, who seems to be accepting the situation now, ties her hair and asks the robot, did the humans leave any clothes here? I want to give something to Howard. The robot replies, yes, there are clothes in the rooms. You don't need to worry. I'll take care of it. Sharon looks at the robot carefully and asks, do you know why the humans abandoned you? The robot says, is it because I didn't work hard enough? Sharon walks up to it and says, no, it's because you never showed them how valuable you are, and I don't want to be like you. Sometime later, the bathroom door opens, and Howard is taking a shower. As he turns, he sees that the robot has fallen to the ground. Howard quickly asks, what happened to you? The robot says, please don't leave me alone. I can still work. I can clean. I want to be with humans. I miss the time I spent with them. The robot's memories flash by. Memories of the time when humanity was alive, when there were animals, children playing, and calling out to it. It was useful to them, until it suddenly became useless. And since then, it has been all alone in this place. The robot says, I beg you, I can still work. I don't know what paradise is like, but I'll make this place even cleaner than paradise. Howard, while attaching the robot's parts back into place, says, its parts are very old. How are robots repaired? The robot 2003 responds, there were human engineers in the maintenance room who used to repair the robots. Howard says, there are no engineers here now, so I'll have to try it myself. Just then, the back door opens, and Sharon enters the bathroom wearing clothes. She says, the world is about to collapse anyway. We don't need to be shy about it. And yes, I've kept some clean clothes for you. Howard, a bit embarrassed, says, thanks. Please just put them on the table. Sharon does so and says, we're in a very bad situation, but we still have a chance to survive. But I don't understand why humans left this shelter, where there was food and shelter, and took the risk of killing themselves. Howard replies, 2003 talked about the place they were looking for. Sharon says, it doesn't matter. The whole world is going to collapse soon. Wherever we go, nothing will change unless there's a place that can protect us from destruction. Only such a place could be worth it, even if it means death on the way. Sharon removes her robe and continues. There must be some useful information in the records, and I can decipher it in a short time. The problem is, the sea level is continuously rising, and monsters are gathering on the land. This will only make our problems worse. As Sharon enters the tub, she says, I hope we continue working as a team until help arrives. I'll keep searching for an escape route, and you keep us safe. But Howard, instead of listening to her, is now completely intimidated because Sharon suddenly undresses in front of him. Howard thinks, doesn't she fear that I might attack her? He quietly agrees with her and looks away. Then his gaze falls on a weapon hidden beneath the robot. Howard wonders what this means. Sharon says, I thought I'd have to use special methods to calm you down, but now I'm relieved to see that you can control yourself. In this critical life and death moment, a mental breakdown would have ended all our chances of survival. Yeah, guys, this woman is nothing like Sabrina. She kept the weapon just to calm Howard down. If she had lost control, she wouldn't have feared a sexual attack. Her real fear was losing Howard because he's her little helper, and if he had mentally collapsed, he would have been of no use. She's much smarter than average humans. Howard tells her he has some work to do, and then takes the robot 2003 and leaves the bathroom. Sharon stays behind, thinking that Howard is just an ordinary human. The world is collapsing, yet he remains bound by morality. But that's a good thing, because it won't take much time to handle him. After some time, the sound of welding can be heard. Howard is repairing the 2003, which has started chattering again. Our protagonist asks the robot why it didn't say anything when Sharon was with them. He thought the robot had deteriorated so much that it couldn't speak. The robot replies, "Human language is very complicated. I can understand the nuances behind words, but it's better not to interrupt my training. I need to train to kill beasts." Hearing this, the robot is surprised and says, "That's dangerous." Howard replies, "I don't have any other option. Even in another world, I lived during times of destruction. The mutated animals there tried to kill me, and this killing won't stop until the waves of destruction disappear." He continues, "Maybe you won't understand, but forcing a hard-working, debt-ridden worker to step out of their comfort zone takes immense courage. I traded everything I had for an achievement that someone effortlessly crushed in the end." Howard realizes that surrendering and running away would be his true death. He must move forward. The robot asks, "Another world? Are you talking about the paradise where humans went?" Howard replies, "Why do you always talk about that paradise? For me, my home is my paradise. It's a place of safety, loyalty, value, light, and omnipotent healing power. If I can overcome this challenge, I can save my home." The robot responds, "I understand. Paradise is amazing, no doubt. All humans must be there. Can I help you, Master? I'd love to assist you in saving your paradise." Howard says, "Absolutely. I might get injured fighting monsters, and I'll need you to heal me quickly. And yes, you don't have to keep calling me Master. You can just call me Howard. That'll be fine." The robot finds this fascinating and says, "Only humans call each other by name." Howard jokes, "If you were a robot girl, I'd like you calling me Master, but I'm not interested in a rusty machine." The second day of the apocalypse arrives. Sharon observes Howard's work and notices that the armored robot now looks like a knight. It even has a small shield. Sharon comments, "Let's see who dares to mess with it now." She shows Howard large crossbow bolts that the locals use to protect themselves from monsters. Howard keeps them for himself and gets ready to head out of the fort. After all, his goal is to hunt beasts and become stronger. But Sharon stops him. Howard says they had already made an agreement about the roles, so he's heading out to kill the monsters. Sharon tries to stop him, saying it's unnecessary and that he doesn't need to hunt these creatures. She reminds him that his current role is to keep the fort safe. Howard responds that they only have 180 days, and he doesn't want to wait for all the monsters to attack them at once. Sharon can't understand why Howard is seeking trouble. She agrees he has the skills to kill monsters, but reminds him of the more serious problems they're facing. She asks if he's forgotten how corrosive the creature's blood can be. She mentions seeing a monkey that was as tall as a 2-story building and warns him that he's putting his life at unnecessary risk. She insists they can't afford mistakes and that they should save their strength and accumulate more power before fighting. Howard counters, asking if she's trying to tell him what he should or shouldn't do in his own world. Sharon doesn't understand what he means. Howard reflects that, in real life, he was almost dying in bed with people trying to kill him. He can't just sit in a shelter thinking about all this. He needs to get stronger as soon as possible. He tells Sharon he agreed to look after her because she once saved his life, but that doesn't mean she can interfere with his work. He bluntly adds that he doesn't care what happens to this world. If she's uncomfortable, she can leave anytime. Despite Howard's harsh words, Sharon maintains her composure and says she's only concerned about his safety. She wishes him a safe journey as Howard summons 2003 and leaves the fort. As he walks away, Howard thinks that what he said doesn't matter because Sharon is just an NPC. However, Sharon begins to feel turmoil within. She realizes she was completely wrong about Howard. His way of thinking and behaving isn't like an ordinary man's, even in a crumbling world. She can't understand what's going through his mind. Suddenly, a snake slithers between her feet. Sharon turns around and finds herself in a forest. A voice echoes, "What is your value? What is your value?" A hand rests on her shoulder. She quickly turns, but no one is there. Sharon screams for the voices to leave her head. The voices chant, "Join us, join us, join us." She ties her hair back, and the hallucination ends. It seems she, like Sabrina, is experiencing lucid sensations. Sharon tells herself there's no need to rush, she still has time. But she knows she must build a friendly relationship with Howard. Otherwise, she might die from the lucid sensations. The story continues as the robot tells Howard that his tone with Sharon today was different from yesterday. Howard replies that his attitude has changed. If he had been tougher in the past, people wouldn't have been able to hold a knife to his neck. The robot asks why Howard, as a human, risked such a dangerous situation, knowing how vital the neck is. Howard replies that after his first dream, he mistakenly started believing that everyone was good. He recalls a woman who came to him in real life, searching for Josh Tai. Howard had told her that Josh Tai had left the previous night. The woman explained that Josh Tai had killed a man to save someone's life. He wasn't a bad person, but had spent 20 years in prison for it. Now, after being released, he was getting involved with the wrong people again. She asked Howard to convince Josh to leave that life if he ever saw him again. Howard tells the robot that it doesn't matter whether he's dreaming or in real life. He must give up his fantasies about human nature or saving others' lives. Then, we see a flashback where a knife is held to Howard's neck, and Josh Tai asks him, "Do you really want to help me? Do you think you're some kind of god?" He tells Howard, "Give me one reason why I should work with you. You're neither rich nor powerful. You have nothing to offer me." Howard explains to Robot 2003 that saving lives is a hero's job, but he needs to let go of such fantasies. Most people aren't heroes. They can't even follow basic rules of being decent. The robot, listening, replies, "I still don't understand human language." Finally, they arrive at their destination, where mutant wolves await. 2003 warns, "These wolves are very dangerous." Howard responds, "Don't worry, this is what I was waiting for. It's time to begin." The robot warns him, "Be careful, Howard. Their fight score is higher than yours." Howard says nothing, pulls out his spear, and feels his heart pounding. The robot adds, "The score is rising." Howard confronts the mutant wolves head-on. They attack with all their might, but Howard quickly defeats them with his spear. 2003 watches the fight from a distance. Howard steps on a wolf's head when another wolf attacks him. The mutant wolf, drooling saliva, leaps, but Howard grabs its neck. The creature struggles, but Howard uses all his strength to strangle it, its blood splattering onto his skin. After the fight, 2003 warns him, "Don't touch mutant creatures with your bare hands. The green liquid they release is toxic." Howard replies, "This is part of the training. In real life, you won't always have a knife. Most of the time, you'll have to fight with your hands." The robot then spots a tent and asks, "Is this our shelter? Why is it here?" As Howard approaches the tent, a horrible smell hits him. The robot explains, "This tent has likely been occupied by wolves for a long time." They find a box, and the robot identifies it as containing wheat seeds, a symbol of their shelter. Howard asks, "Were you farmers?" The robot replies, "Yes. There were gunpowder shelters, armor shelters, and plant shelters. Each had specific manufacturing tasks, and we exchanged goods and materials. But as the corrosion waves increased, these shelters became unsustainable. The environment isn't suitable for agriculture." The robot adds, "Every robot from the heat shelter can cultivate soil under different conditions. Give me some stones, and I'll produce soil. I'll use the beast's feces and their ashes to make fertilizer." Howard nods and asks if the bird he killed is in the shelter. He then instructs the robot to search for more seeds during the day and cultivate plants at night. The robot comments, "I love cultivating plants, but when the coated ocean arrives, they'll die." Howard replies, "When humans return, they'll find our work useful." The robot asks, "Will humans really come back? How do you know?" Howard recalls the AI's words. The biggest challenge of this game is how much players can improve the future of humanity. He tells the robot, "Humans will be considered in the final evaluation. I'm certain they'll return, but I doubt I'll witness it. I only have 180 days here, so it's better to prepare the basic equipment." The robot agrees. "You're right. Until the shelter is restored, humans won't come back. Paradise is nothing compared to the old shelter. As humans used to say, the shelter was something they could never leave behind." Howard asks him, "Are you talking about the house?" 2003 says, "Yes, that was my home." A few hours pass, and we see Howard fighting a giant mutant spider. The creature knocks him down, but Howard picks up a rock and strikes the spider with full force. He keeps hitting the spider's head repeatedly, despite its corrosive blood falling on him, until he is sure the creature is dead. The robot says, "Your fight score has decreased by 20 points. Did you even practice during this time?" Howard asks, "What is this score?" The robot explains, "It's calculated based on the creature's physical strength and fight status. Your peak score was 90, but now it's dropped to 70. Howard says, "I've never lost a fight in my life." "What do you mean?" The robot replies, "I mean your will to fight has diminished. Your focus isn't on the fight anymore. It seems you're using your physical power to vent your frustration. Howard finds it amusing that the robot can understand what's going on inside him. He tells 2003, "I wonder how someone could be trained to become a fighting master while dreaming." As he says this, he's joking. In real life, true enemies are people, unexpected attacks, and intangible pressures. In a civilized society, not everything can be solved with fists. He wonders if this training could truly be effective. The robot asks, "Why you want to go to that other world you talk about? Why can't you consider this place your home? Let's plant fruit trees and vegetables here and make it our home." Howard replies, "Until my family is here, I can't call this place home. It's just a dream, but your idea isn't bad. We should make this place better so it keeps our hopes alive." They return to the shelter, where Sharon greets him. "It was a good harvest." Howard asks her, "What happened to the body of that giant bird I killed?" Sharon says, "Monster bodies contain a lot of chemicals, and their meat isn't edible. The bird's body would attract more monsters, so I got rid of it." Howard didn't expect this, but tells himself, "No problem. I'll kill more monsters tomorrow and use them to make fertilizer." He tries eating dried meat, but his jaw feels too weak to chew. Maybe it's a side effect of repeatedly using the robot's healing potion or the result of too much acid hitting his face. He decides to soak the meat in water to soften it before eating. Without saying a word to Sharon, he leaves. Sharon still finds his behavior strange, but she has brought seeds for the shelter anyway. Time passes, and we see Howard asking 2003 if there's any stock of the healing potion. The robot replies that this medicine was never a rare resource. Every shelter used to have an abundance of it. It suggests exploring a relatively safe shelter nearby, where they might find something useful. Howard says he likes the idea and needs to prepare for it. At that moment, Sharon comes in with a bowl of noodles. She says, "You were having trouble chewing your dinner, so I made noodles out of the grains you brought. They're hot, so eat them quickly." Howard asks, "Are you joking?" Sharon replies, "I didn't use all the grains. I ground some into powder and saved the rest." Howard says nothing, but feels anger building up inside him. The robot silently observes the argument between Mom and Dad. Sharon asks, "Were you planning to plant these seeds? This environment isn't suitable for cultivation. In half a year, everything will flood. There's no point in growing anything here." Howard replies, "I didn't expect you to waste the seeds so quickly, but I'm used to such problems. Challenges always arise before achieving anything. Next time, consult me before doing anything. And keep the noodles. Just don't show them to the robot. It'll get angry." Sharon begins to think Howard is truly losing his mind. One moment he's off on adventures just because he feels like it, and the next he wants to grow plants. She glances at the robot and wonders if 2003 is trying to win their sympathy. Is it the real problem here? Apocalypto tells the robot, 3 potions are enough for emergency self-defense. The robot responds, "This is the first time you're heading into deserted fields. Your safety is the priority." Sharon then enters and says, "Howard, can we talk for a moment?" Howard asks, "What do you want now?" Sharon explains that she reviewed the records of the people who used to live there and found installation instructions for robot upgrades. There are several new functions we can add to 2003. I have some knowledge of electronics and can try refining it. Howard asks, "Will it actually work?" Sharon replies, "Whether it succeeds or not doesn't matter. 2003 is old and worn out. Even if I fail, at least its data will be preserved for future reference. But if we leave it as is, the internal chip will degrade to the point where nothing useful will remain." Howard says, 2003 has always been loyal to humans. Don't you think it's a bit rude to extract all its value like this? Sharon responds, "It's just a machine like a computer or a cell phone. I'm only trying to make the best use of it." She then asks, "Do you really consider it your friend?" Howard replies, "I don't like your sarcastic tone. Does showing sympathy make me less of a man? I even considered befriending a tiger in the past. Does that bother you?" A true machine focuses only on results and ignores the process. Our opinions differ greatly. It's better if we talk less to avoid fighting. Sharon thinks about how foolish Howard is. At that moment, someone grabs her hand and voices echo in her head repeatedly. After some time, we see another mutated creature hovering above the shelter. Howard asks why it hasn't attacked yet. 2003 explains, "These are scavengers. They're attracted to dying creatures or corpses. As long as you stay away from their nest, they won't bother you." Howard says, "We need to clear the nest above the shelter for good." 2003 replies, "Howard, the corrosive ocean spread because humans fought too much. This should be a valuable lesson for you. You and Mrs. Sharon have already shown signs of future conflicts. Can you stop these disputes? Howard finds it curious that even this dream has a backstory. 2003 wonders why people fought each other, explaining that different colors represented different powers, leading to negotiations and arguments. Despite seeing the spread of corrosion, they did nothing. Howard admits he hadn't thought that far. It's a complicated problem, he says, acknowledging he got carried away while talking to Sharon. He adds that in real life, some people impose their opinions on others, label them, and categorize those who disobey as high class, while others are labeled lower. The root of human disputes lies in overemphasizing differences. Howard reassures the robot, "Don't worry, this is my second dream. I know this is just a game, and I won't do something foolish like taking revenge on a virtual NPC." Later, we see them searching for something. 2003 tells Howard that today's task is to explore the deserted fields. Howard agrees, but soon finds something interesting, a rusty truck with a mutated lizard-like creature perched on it. Maybe there's something valuable inside, Howard suggests. 2003 warns, "Are you joking? This beast's fighting power is literally 100 times yours. It's a dominant class predator, the most dangerous in this land. To defeat it, you need a tank." Howard responds, "I'm not stupid enough to fight it alone. We'll play like experienced players. First, we can't leave since we've come this far. Second, we should press F5, a joke gamers would understand." He then asks the 2003, "Do you trust me?" Suddenly, there's a fire. Something caught the lizard's attention as 2003 spews fire and runs around. The lizard, annoyed, chases after it, giving Howard a chance to approach the truck. He finds the truck filled with loot. Honey, a musician's instrument, a crate full of weapons, alcohol for drinking or bomb-making, and a glowing red gem surrounded by strange particles. Howard wishes he had a bag, but decides to take the essentials: weapons, fertilizer, the red gem, and some frozen eggs. However, the loot is hard to carry, especially the gem's container, which takes up too much space. As Howard tries to lift the gem, he notices a dust-like substance around it, tiny particles floating in the air. A chemical reaction occurs, and the stone launches forward, throwing Howard out of the truck. The loot scatters everywhere as the gem expels so much energy that the truck is hurled into the air, flipping and crashing in the distance. 2003 yells, "Howard, watch out. The lizard has noticed you." Now in trouble, Howard quickly gathers what he can and runs, wondering why the gem suddenly went berserk. He hides in a crevice where the creature can't reach him, but the strange gem continues behaving erratically. It drags the truck several meters before crashing into rocks and causing a massive explosion. The blast shakes the terrain, scattering debris everywhere. Both Howard and the lizard are thrown back by the force. Howard barely survives. If the explosion had been slightly stronger, he would have fallen into the corrosive ocean. However, the lizard is now staring him down. The mutated creature spreads its green petals around its head and shoots 2 jets of acid directly at Howard. Smoke rises as the liquid hits. Howard, fighting to survive, has dropped everything he picked up except syringes filled with healing potions. He uses 3 potions at once as corrosive acid falls directly onto his face. Thinking Howard is dead, the creature turns its back and walks away. Now the 4th day of the game begins. We see that 2003 is leaning against a rock, and he has started a fire made from scraps of a broken box. Just then, Howard wakes up. 2003 is happy that Howard has finally woken up. He says it's amazing how much resistance Howard showed. He's never seen someone with such willpower. Howard, whose hair has grown long due to the excessive use of healing potions, says, "It wasn't anything special. I'm an experienced player who is used to taking risks. I once thought nothing could be more painful than a Voss's bite, but I was wrong. Being washed in sulfuric acid is way worse." He asks 2003 about the red stone that blew up the truck. "If it wasn't for that, I could have survived." The robot replies, "That was the energy core, the world's most precious thing. If you rub a little sand on it, it generates energy, and if you hit it hard, it explodes." The robot explains that this is also the energy core that powers their shelter. Howard remembers that the stone was protected by a container, which he had removed. He says, "I shouldn't have done that." He then asks the robot if there's any other crucial information he should know to avoid blowing things up. The robot says, "There's something even more dangerous. You have a mark on you from the ruling animal of that region, the giant lizard. Its poison is a liquid, and now wherever you go, you'll have to be ready for unexpected attacks." Howard realizes that the skin which got hit the most has now been coated. His left arm is now numb, as if he had fallen asleep on it. Now, he'll have to throw things with his other hand. He tells the robot, I feel like in real life too, someone is hunting me. And now in the game, I'm used to it. Then he asks 2003 about the box with eggs. 2003 replies that the eggs are fine, and the temperature monitor is working. The eggs are hatching. He then takes the eggs out and shows them. Howard asks if people had raised chickens in the shelter. The robot answers, yes, not just chickens, but ducks, geese, and pigs too. I remember them all. Back then, you'd see herds of sheep and cows in the mountains and valleys. Howard says, when I was little, we had birds at home too. Whenever I heard the roosters crowing, I felt like I was close to home, and it made me happy. But when I grew up, all I heard was crows. Now, when I go near my home, I only feel fear. The robot says, that's strange. Fear and happiness are practically opposites. I don't understand why. When you think of your home, these two feelings mix inside you. Howard thinks about his family's debts and says that he wishes he could tell his father to just relax at home and enjoy life now. He also wishes he could tell his mother not to blame herself, that it wasn't her fault the family fell into debt. He wants to tell them that he never held any grudges against them. He also wants to say that he has a girlfriend now and is about to start a new family, but he can't do any of this. After going into debt, his parents started blaming themselves for everything bad. Trying to calm them down only made them feel guiltier. Howard says, I've been through a lot, but the thing I fear the most is that my parents will open the emergency room door and see me in that condition. Just thinking about it feels like someone stabbed a sharp knife into my heart. There is silence for a while. Then the robot asks, do you want a magic hug? It doesn't know what happens when you ask for one, but when the shelter kids were sad, they always asked for one. Howard says, I'm not a kid. I'm a responsible adult. But then he thinks, screw it, the best thing about this game is that there's no judgment, no gossip, no one pointing fingers. He just shared a secret with the robot that he had kept hidden deep in his heart. In the real world, if anyone had heard this, he would have been embarrassed. Howard says, in the real world, people suppress their pain. Everyone needs a magic hug at some point. Some time passes, and Howard asks 2003, can the eggs hatch inside you? The robot says yes, but to prevent them from breaking, sand needs to be poured on top. While doing this, Howard notices a sinister scratch on the robot's back, and the iron he welded is missing. Howard asks, what happened to your armor? 2003 takes him outside the cave and explains that scavengers did this. When Howard was in a coma, the scavengers attacked. He had to put out flames to fight them. He says, I challenged them, but lost, and my iron shield was gone. Howard thanks him and says, that fight must have been pretty fierce. But 2003 says he should be grateful. He can't believe that just a few days ago, his biggest dream was only to see humans again. Howard not only repaired him, but also planned to rebuild the shelter. Despite so many problems, he didn't lose hope. The robot says humans are liars. They said they'd come back, but they didn't. They said they wouldn't save anyone, but they saved me. Howard is speechless and tells the robot that what he's about to say might sound strange for an NPC, but he still wants to express his feelings. He says, we've seen many life and death moments together. 2003, you can see me like family. The robot replies, family? I never had a family. Howard touches the robot to calm him, as there's something nearby, a giant green gorilla, the same one that fought him on the first day. 2003 says, these giant monkeys are attracted to sound. Maybe it came because of the explosion. Howard finds it strange that there's another ruler-level monster in this region. He asks the robot, what would happen if they both meet? The robot replies, then there would be a terrible battle between them. Our protagonist says, that's a good strategy to take them out together, but we have to be very careful. Then he asks, does your shelter also have an energy core like the red one? 2003 says, yes, the energy core in the shelter is very big. It's as powerful as a nuclear weapon. Howard says, we need to come up with a plan that solves all the problems at once. After some time, they return to the shelter, but now mutant eagles are flying above it. Howard notices a dead eagle at the shelter entrance. When he gets closer to the entrance, he sees not just the eagle, but also the nest on top of the shelter is burning. Suddenly, an arrow flies in from somewhere, hitting the wall next to the protagonist and exploding, causing Howard to fall several meters away. Sharon Young appears, the one who fired the arrow. Inside the shelter, Sharon tells him that he was away for 2 days. She thought something had happened to Howard, so she had to take action for her own safety. Howard tells her that if her aim had been a little better, he would have been done for. Then he asks if she was the one who set the nest on fire and killed the scavenger outside. Sharon replies, yes, a lot happened in between. She explains that giant hawks were hovering over the shelter, and she realized that all of this was happening because of the nest. After reading about the energy core, she understood that she could use the shelter's tools to create small pieces of the energy core and use them to defeat those creatures. Sharon says she took archery lessons as a child, but now she's getting nervous. Howard admits that, even though they fought before, he had underestimated her. She outsmarted him with her intelligence. Howard asks her to make some small bombs because they need to leave immediately, but Sharon grabs his hand and requests that he stay with her for a few days. She says that she has found some crucial clues about humans who might have left here. Howard tells her he can't stay because a truck-sized lizard has been marking him and is now following him. Howard tells Sharon that she can explain her theory when he handles the lizard. Meanwhile, 2003, who had been silently listening, says he needs to recharge and Howard needs to collect the eggs. Howard tells Sharon that they have found fertilized eggs that are about to hatch and asks her to take them to the shelter's incubation shed and take care of them. Sharon immediately agrees and says she loves animals. Sharon ties her hair back and says, you leave them with me. Howard notices that Sharon's behavior seems a bit off and asks her if everything is okay. Sharon says she's just a little sleep-deprived, nothing more. Howard doesn't pay much attention to it. As soon as the sun rises, Howard praises Sharon's work. She has created 4 spears, each with a bomb attached. Now, Howard has the perfect weapon. He asks 2003 if it has found anything. The robot says there's been no discovery yet. Howard comments on why 2003 didn't mention the radar before. 2003 replies that it didn't know it could be useful. The radar consumes a lot of energy and only works in small areas. It was designed to help people find their lost pets. Suddenly, a tremor shakes the shelter. Everything starts to rumble, and something explodes. The electricity goes out. Howard wonders if a lizard has arrived, but 2003 says the radar didn't detect anything. Just then, Sharon runs in and says, don't panic. She explains that energy leaked in the electricity generation room, but she didn't do anything wrong. Something malfunctions suddenly. 2003 quickly remembers that the eggs will spoil without electricity. However, when they try to save the eggs, they realize the explosion blocked the path. They'll have to clear it first. After some time, they reach the room where the eggs are kept, but only one of them still has a green light. Sharon runs in and says the power system has been fixed. She then asks about the eggs. Howard tells her that now only one egg can hatch, the rest have gone bad. Sharon apologizes and promises not to tamper with the energy core again. 2003 carefully examines the remaining egg. Howard realizes that the robot is concerned about the egg, so he says 2003 should take it with him. Sharon says, wait, there's only one egg left, and leaving it with the robot is risky. It was just a small accident. I'll take good care of it. Just put it back in the incubator. Howard tells her that if she truly cares about animals, he'll give her more eggs in the future, but this last egg is safer in 2003's hands. Because for him, it's not just an egg, it's hope. Sharon grits her teeth in anger and can't hold back anymore. She yells, how long are you going to keep playing this foolish game? Doesn't it feel weird to form an emotional bond with a robot? Howard, with regret, replies, I thought there was finally something in common between us, but maybe I was wrong. Amid their argument, 2003's radar beeps. It warns that the giant lizard is very close to the shelter. Howard tells it to stay inside, as going out could break the egg. 2003 responds, no, you are my family. Howard says, okay, but stay away from the fight, and both of them head outside. Sharon finds it crazy that a robot called her family. Once she's alone, the voices inside her head get louder. Where can you run, Sharon? I'm always with you. Outside, Howard and 2003 prepare to fight the giant mute lizard. The lizard charges toward them at full speed. Howard plans to run across the rocks to lead it away from the shelter, but he realizes the lizard is too smart. It's not directly following them, but trying to cut them off. Howard throws a fragment of the energy core to delay the beast, but it intentionally explodes behind it, strong enough to cause some damage, though not enough to hurt the beast. 2003 says, it's too far. Howard replies, it was just to delay it so the explosion doesn't harm us. But 2003 insists, it's useless. The beast is still following us. As the beast gets closer, Howard says they need to make noise. He and the robot throw more fragments, causing explosions. At the same time, a scavenger notices the commotion. In front of them was a corrosive ocean, and the giant lizard was nearly upon them. Howard says that he has a grenade, which is his last hope. He tells 2003 to move forward, but they are forced to stop when a green giant gorilla appears in front of them. Howard, without fear, says that it's too late now. Behind them, a giant lizard joins the party. Now, Howard and 2003 are trapped. Howard tells the robot to look at the mountain on the right, which looks dry and fragile. He says to follow him. Both giant animals roar, and Howard throws his spear. The explosion creates a crater in the mountain wall, and they both enter it. Outside, the giant animals start fighting each other. Hiding in the crater, Howard and 2003 know it's very dangerous. The crater could collapse at any moment. King Kong throws the lizard far away, but the lizard quickly gets back up, and his green pulses start inflating again. The monkey doesn't give him a chance to charge his skill, and immediately strikes him on the head. He keeps beating him badly, and it looks like he's going to win. But then, 2 jets of sulfuric acid go straight into King Kong's open mouth. Howard is shocked as he sees the gorilla stagger backward, and the sulfuric acid spills over him. Eventually, he retreats and runs away. Howard takes advantage of the lizard's distraction and throws an explosive spear straight at his face. But when he tries to throw a second spear, his left arm, which had been damaged by acid, becomes weak, and the spear goes in the wrong direction. Meanwhile, Howard instinctively grabs another spear and activates his throwing skills to the maximum. He throws the spear, which contains an energy core fragment, with all his strength. The spear flies quickly through the air and collides with the second spear. Howard had calculated the impact perfectly, so the first spear, correcting its trajectory, goes straight into the lizard's mouth. For a few seconds, the lizard doesn't understand what happened, but then its head explodes violently, and green pulses spread everywhere. 2003 congratulates Howard for his brilliant throw, saying he had defeated the ruling beast of the region. Howard smiles and says, "That throw was epic. I think I could be a great basketball player." But just then, 2003 feels something strange. The egg inside him is cracking and could hatch at any moment. At that moment, the weather suddenly worsens with strong winds and lightning. Howard asks 2003, "What's happening with the weather?" 2003 explains that it's a once-a-year typhoon, and heavy rain and sandstorms will come in the next 48 hours. They only have 10 minutes before it starts. Howard says, in this little time, even Usain Bolt couldn't reach shelter. He then suggests using the last fragment of the energy core to open a cave, but just then, he hears a strange beeping sound. He asks 2003 if he can hear it too, but the strong winds make it impossible for him to hear anything. At that moment, the chicken egg inside the robot hatches. 2003 is fascinated by the sight, as he never thought he would see a live chicken. Howard starts hearing the beeping sound more clearly and realizes it's a danger signal. He thinks to himself, "I've heard this sound before," and then it dawns on him. It's the ticking sound of a bomb. He immediately looks toward the lizard's dead body, and yes, the sound is coming from there, but it's too late now. The sound stops, and the body explodes violently. Meat, bones, and acid scatter everywhere. Howard crashes into a stone wall and is completely drenched in sulfuric acid. His right eye is completely burned. This time, he screams in pain, unable to endure the agony. The explosion attracts a swarm of scavengers. Howard took 3 healing potions out of his torn bag and injected himself. It gave him just enough strength to stand. Then he noticed that the last fragment of the energy core vial had fallen from his bag and was lying nearby. The scavengers were now close, and he had to act quickly. He kicked the vial forcefully towards the wall. The vial hit the wall, and another huge explosion occurred, throwing Howard away once again. It had been a tough day for our protagonist, but wait, because the story isn't over yet. What he had tried to do somehow worked. He created a path leading to a cave inside the mountain. If he could get there, he might be able to save himself. Gathering his last bit of strength, he stood up, but just then, a mute eagle attacked him with its sharp claws. Another eagle followed immediately, and our protagonist fell to the ground. He was now severely injured from deep cuts and sulfuric acid burns. He saw another scavenger quickly approaching him. He realized his mistake. He should have been more careful. Now, he would have to pay the price. The scavenger advanced with its sharp claws for the final strike, but just in time, 2003 grabbed him and pulled him away, shouting, "Hold on." He injected him with another healing potion. Howard told him he should have stayed away. 2003 didn't respond, only continuing to drag him toward the cave and trying to close the door. Howard told him to give up, that it was over. He said he couldn't even handle his own body anymore, and even if he wasn't dying right now, he would only become a burden. He had made a mistake in the game, and now it was over for him. But 2003 said, "You will survive. I will take care of you." A small chip inside 2003's body was already running. He managed to close the entrance of the cave, and for now, they were safe. Howard, now burning from the acid, told 2003 that he should quit the game. He said the backstory of the game was great, but at least he was leaving to save the chick in 2003. But 2003 responded, "I'm not going anywhere. You are my family." Howard tried to explain that he was just repeating program scripts. He said the game was over, he had tried his best, but he had lost. Prolonging this would only cause more pain. The birds aren't interested in a metal piece. You could take the chick and leave, but I'm finished now. I'll wake up in the real world and face my fate. Just then, a giant beak pierced the cave entrance, and the scavengers tried to enter. 2003 stood in front of them, saying, "I can provide protection for Howard. I can give you loyalty, warmth, light, and heal every wound." He repeated this, and Howard realized these were the same words he had once said to 2003. Suddenly, a huge beak pierced 2003's body. Howard could do nothing but watch as a large hole formed in 2003's body, and worst of all, the small chick, who had been his hope, was killed. But 2003 didn't stop. He used his body to block the cave entrance. Taking his last breath, 2003 told Howard, "Don't die. I'll take you to a place even more sacred than heaven." And then the beak pierced his head. His visor fell off, and the beak continued to strike, completely destroying 2003's body. Howard slowly lost consciousness. The last thing he saw was 2003's broken body still blocking the cave entrance. Day 6 of the game began. Yes, friends, this was only the 6th day of the game, and our protagonist had already come close to dying 3 times, but he was still alive. We see 2003, surrounded by mist in a desert, dragging his broken body. Howard regains consciousness and wonders if this is the end of the world. 2003, in bad shape, replies, "This is a post-sandstorm world. The storm scared the scavengers, and I survived. My radar is still working. Before I die, I'll get you back to shelter." Howard says he can't feel any part of his body and asks if he is paralyzed. 2003 replies, "You took too many healing injections. Once the anesthetic wears off, everything will return to normal." Howard says that once he can move again, he'll fix 2003, who really needs it. The little robot is on the verge of breaking apart. Only one arm is left, its head is almost gone, and its body is full of wires. A little more damage and it would be thrown in the trash. Despite this, 2003 gathers the strength to speak and asks Howard, "How will you rebuild the shelter? Tell me." Howard takes a deep breath and then agrees to the robot's request. He says, "First, I will pave the path to the shelter. I'll complete it by pouring cement." Then he adds, "I will plant poplar trees on both sides. These trees are tall and straight." On the left side of the shelter, he wants to create an open field where he'll plant wheat, maybe soybeans and corn too. On the right side, he plans to plant rapeseed flowers. He says, when spring comes, these flowers will bloom and create a beautiful view. At the end of the road, he'll plant a large tree. Every time I leave the shelter, I will see that tree. Whenever I feel lost or confused, whenever I don't know where to go, I will look at that tree, he says. In this moment, we see his old memories when he left home and started his life alone in a new city. He says, "In such moments, I would stop and look back. That tree was always there for me, the same tree that marked the start of my journey." 2003 says, "That's beautiful. No person should feel lost with a tree like that." Howard agrees, "I've been lost for a long time." Eventually, they find a shelter, but 2003 detects a barrier near the entrance. It releases Howard's body so he can understand what it is. 2003 moves toward the barrier, and Howard turns around, noticing that there's something there. It's a warning from Sharon, stating that landmines have been placed there and they should take a detour. Howard immediately shouts, "2003, get out of there!" But it's too late. The small robot, which had already lost its display and couldn't read the message, explodes loudly. But it's weak. Pieces of the robot fly everywhere. 2003's disc, with its name written on it, falls in front of Howard. Howard thinks, "Why is this world so cruel to me?" He reaches out to touch the disc, but just then, another hand snatches it away. Sharon Young, with wide eyes, grabs the disc from Howard's hand. Howard fills with anger, but he can't do anything. He just watches as Sharon runs away. Howard faints again. Now, the story reaches the 8th day of the game. Our protagonist has been unconscious for 2 days. He suddenly wakes up in a room where water and dried meat have been left for him. Hungry and thirsty for 4 days, he drinks the water immediately without thinking. But soon, he remembers Sharon Young. He starts shouting her name, calling her as he exits the room. Meanwhile, we see Sharon, who is nervously holding a screwdriver. Howard finds her, but before he can say anything, the reboot happens. Our protagonist is stunned. The robot says, "System memory recovery." 2003 is standing in front of him, even better than before, not just with both arms but now also with 2 wheels. 2003 regains its memory and asks, "What happened? Was I repaired?" Howard thinks, "How is this possible?" Sharon explains that this metallic ring is the robot's central controller. As long as the controller is intact, the robot can be repaired. 2003 is surprised that now it has hands, is completely clean, and all its parts, inside and out, are new. Additionally, it has upgrades like a comeback system, and the best part is that it now has a rice cooking system. The robot can't believe that after all this time, it has become an elite robot. Howard is impressed and asks Sharon how she managed to do all this. Sharon replies, "I already told you that the robot could be improved, but you ignored me." She says that there were many robot bodies in the maintenance room that could have been used for 2003, but Howard preferred to stick with the junk iron parts. Sharon continues, "You never listened to me. It's easier for you to take out your anger on me." Howard tries to say something, but only manages to say that he had heard that the improvement process could destroy 2003. Upon hearing this, Sharon gets irritated and says, "Scientific tests never guarantee 100% success. There's always a small chance things won't go according to plan." She asks him, "How old are you? You have no idea how foolish you are. If I hadn't fixed the robot on time, we'd have had an apocalypse." Sharon explains that when Howard was unconscious for days, she had to take steps for her own safety. She had put up a warning, yet Howard still walked into the landmines. She says, "Whenever I talk to you about science, you become heartless. If I want to make a plan, you leave me alone and do things your way. Every time something goes wrong, you blame me." Tears fall from Sharon's eyes as she says, "I don't understand what I did wrong. I just want to survive. I'm not bad." Howard apologizes, saying he hadn't thought about it much, but Sharon, crying, walks away. She says, "The robot's needs can only be met by the energy core now. Just charging won't work anymore. But after what I did with the chicken eggs, I promised not to touch the energy core again. Now you'll have to handle this yourself." Sharon leaves him to think about changing his attitude toward her. As Sharon walks through the shelter's corridors, she thinks that Howard is stubborn and can't stand it when someone is tough on him. While tying her hair up, she says to herself, "If he wants to play games, fine, we'll play the game." The story progresses, and we see Howard happy because his in-game family is back, and now he has hope in this difficult situation. 2003 asks him how he's feeling, and if he'll be able to fight those beasts after so many acid attacks. Howard thinks for a while and realizes that he can move like before, but his hands are uncontrollably shaking. Maybe he won't be able to throw anything anymore. But the robot tells him it's okay. He can relax now because there's no need for a fight. A fighting chip has been installed in him, which makes him practically know every fighting style, from ancient times to modern. His fighting power is now 300. Howard tells him not to be so confident because his own score is only 90. How could a robot have 300? But 2003 explains that the chip contains 400-year-old information from when human civilization was at its peak. After that, the robot starts showing off its skills. It performs crazy moves in the air, showcasing boxing, judo, karate, kung fu, tai chi, and Bruce Lee style. Overall, it has become a martial arts master. Howard is speechless upon seeing this because the robot now seems completely out of control. Some time passes, and we see Howard has turned the robot's hands into boxing gloves. He asks the robot why he didn't tell him earlier that he could be so badass. The robot tells him that not every task can turn a robot into a fighting robot, and Howard himself had said there were no engineers around. Howard had thought Sharon was just a snob businesswoman, but in reality, some people are rich, smart, and proud all at once. Anyway, it's time to change plans. From now on, they'll train. Howard wants the robot to learn as many fighting styles from the chip as possible. Once he's practiced enough, they'll go out and defeat the beasts. The robot is amazed by Howard's excitement and says that he likes this new surprise. Howard tells him that he will bring the energy core he needs and later give him a paint job like a transformer. But 2003 says he needs the shelter logo, which is probably something like VIT. Howard laughs and says that fine, he will paint this logo everywhere, even in the bathroom. Then, after some time, we see Howard looking at a huge energy core. He remembers that the robot had told him that the explosion of this thing could be as powerful as a nuclear bomb. Just then, a female voice suddenly asks him why he's been so late. On the main monitor, the scientist who created this game appears. She says that this energy core is the most precious resource of the game. Usually players just look at it. Howard asks her if she's the developer of the game. She says yes, but quickly adds that they should get to the point. Then she says Howard has to destroy this game. Howard is shocked upon hearing this and says that he's not ready for this. How can she expect him to do that? He hasn't even brushed his teeth yet. The scientist doesn't understand him and asks if he's forgotten her warning. She reminds him that he needs to control his desires. Howard says he knows the difference between the real world and the virtual world and that he can control himself. Then, the scientist talks about another big problem. Is the legal system ready to support the results of this game's launch? Howard doesn't understand what she means. She asks him if he thinks this game will always be in the testing phase. When the game opens to the public, thousands of players will be able to use the skills they've learned in the game in real life, just like Howard is doing. Who will guarantee that these people will remain ordinary citizens who follow the law? Who will ensure that these skills won't be used for bad purposes? Who will guarantee that society's order will stay intact? Howard says he doesn't know. He's just a regular worker, and he can't guarantee anything. It's the game controller's job to remove harmful elements from the game. Then the developer tells him the truth. She says that the main reward of this game is that the player establishes the limit of their cell division. Meaning if someone doesn't remember biology class, it means the player could live forever if they want. She asks how many people will resist this temptation. Then she asks Howard when he realized he unlocked the skill to throw accurate things. He never thought about how crazy that is. She says that they can end all this, even though it's a time of peace in the world. But the world is never fully at peace. Someone always sacrifices themselves for the greater good. Then she asks Howard what he will choose, to become another mad hero or another sinner in history. Howard tells her that he never thought about becoming a hero. He's just an ordinary citizen who doesn't want to get into trouble. Then he asks how he can help her. The developer says it's simple. He just needs to get the energy core to a location, the address of which she'll give him. She will use the system loopholes to end the game, but the tricky part is that the location is very dangerous, with many monsters there. So, she says bring whatever weapons he can and, if possible, arrange for a truck as well. Howard asks if he can wait until the last month of the 180 days given in the game, because his real-life situation is really bad, and here in the game, he can learn something that will be very useful to him in the real world. The game developer says she has some things that can help him, but she can't give him 6 months. The maximum she can give him is 3 months. He must get the energy core to that place in these 3 months. She says that if Howard does this, she will solidify his memory base so that when he wakes up in the real world, he will remember everything he experienced in this dream, especially what he learned. This is all she can offer. After some time, we see that Howard has actually painted 2003, and the robot is very happy about it. Then, Howard takes a fragment of the core in a vial and connects it to the robot's battery, because after tuning, the robot will need more energy. The game developer says that Sharon Yang had used too much energy from the core, which is why she taught her a lesson. She's the one who cut the power when things went wrong. 2003 notices that Howard is deep in thought and asks him what happened. But Howard says everything is fine now and it's time to live life to the fullest. He says he wants to see how good a robot with 300 fighting points can be. The robot stretches its body up to 3 meters and throws a punch at Howard's face, causing him to fall on his knees. Then it asks Howard if he's okay. Howard replies, "This is nothing compared to the burns from sulfuric acid," and adds that the punch actually felt like something from a boxer. He finds it all interesting and says the training should be like this. The robot starts beating him up, sweeping his legs, punching his face, and headbutting him. Just imagine getting a headbutt from a robot. 2003 tells Howard that points don't lie. Without weapons, his fighting score is 50 points, which is the same as an ordinary person. Howard finds this score curious, as it reminds him of someone. He asks the robot if it can estimate that person's score if he gives a description. Howard begins telling a story to 2003. He says a woman who had gone behind Josh Ty at his apartment told him that on a rainy, windy night, this man went to a gang of at least 20 armed drug dealers who were used to killing people for fun. But Josh Tai defeated all of them with his hands. He took down 20 armed criminals. The woman said he did this to save her because they had grown up together. After hearing this, 2003 says that person's score would be at least 3,000 points. And if he had weapons, his score could be doubled or even more. Howard asks in surprise if he's joking. If that's the case, could that person defeat a ruler-level monster alone? The robot says yes, that person's strategy skills and physical strength are incredible. 99% of ruler-level creatures can't withstand the power of 20 weapons. And besides, these monsters are a bit dumb. The person in your story could probably defeat them. The robot then asks if this story is a myth because he's never heard of it and wants to know what happened next. But at this question, Howard gets tense because what happened next was that the man had threatened Howard, saying if he didn't leave the city, change his name, and disappear completely, he would kill his parents, friends, and everyone he knew. Howard looks at a tree and remembers his childhood. Then he asks the robot if it can conquer this entire desert. Can his fighting score reach 3,000? The robot quickly calculates and, based on the scores of the most powerful monsters, says, you've withstood acid rain on your face. What can't you do? And remember, I'll be with you, even if you have to fight God. Howard asks you when you started speaking boldly, like humans. Then he says that there's no need to worry about him. He had talked about planting a tree on the way to the shelter, and he won't back out from his promise. Now, the game has just begun. When both of them train, we see Howard's memories. He is a child coming home from school and talking to the neighbors. A kebab seller gives him kebabs and asks if he knows what he wants to be when he grows up. A woman says that if nothing else, he can manage his parents' shop, but Howard says he wants to drive boats. They ask why, and he says simply he wants to feel free, to go wherever he wants, to laugh and shout in the waves. People find his answer amusing. Then, the scene cuts, and we see Howard's parents talking in the kitchen, looking upset. Maybe someone ran off with their money, and now they're completely broken. Young Howard tells them it's okay. He doesn't need an allowance and urges them to stay strong. But his parents are completely devastated. Our dude doesn't understand what's going on. Then we see that from childhood, Howard had to work to help his parents. He did all kinds of work like handing out flyers and cutting grass. Because of all this, his performance in school suffered, and he would fall asleep in class. Over time, he started working as a part-time assistant, but due to his poor grades, he couldn't achieve anything better in life. Howard always knew that if he wanted to change his life, he would have to start his own business. But this mindset caused problems with a friend who betrayed him. His parents always advised him that they were poor and that he shouldn't get too involved with others but should just work hard. We see Howard apologizing to his friend Donald. Donald doesn't understand why he's apologizing for everything. Howard just doesn't want more problems. Donald tells him that a big company is hiring new employees and they should try it. But Howard says he's definitely going to fail. Donald asks him why he always underestimates himself. Howard says that everyone knows his place in manual labor, and he can't do anything more. Donald asks him if he defines himself based on what others think of him, and why he doesn't ask himself who he really is. But Howard just lowers his head and refuses. People pretend to be happy, but inside, Howard was ambitious. However, on the outside, he kept pretending to be an ordinary person. Gradually, he buried himself behind this fake mask, but inside, he was completely frustrated and living in constant agony. Then we see young Howard standing under a tree, looking at the road that would become his life. He sees the troubles and frustrations he would have to endure, but at the other end of that road, someone is standing. It's today's Howard, looking directly at his past. Everything was clear now. Howard's inner child smiles, but then 2003 calls him and asks what he's looking at. Our protagonist, dropping a dead wolf to the ground, says, "Nothing, just checking if I'm on the wrong path." Now, when Howard is 100% motivated, he's hunting beasts like crazy, making sure he beats them with his own hands. The robot gets annoyed and says they are still in training. But Howard is completely focused on improving his fighting skills. He wanted to become excellent in hand-to-hand combat. But once, when he tried a backflip, he fell headfirst to the ground. 2003 scolds him, telling him there's no need for fancy moves and that there's no point in joking around in a fight. The robot says that it should make the best use of its body, even the strength of its fingers. If it attacks quickly and presses vital points, the opponent will lose its ability to fight. Howard becomes smarter with this instruction from the robot. Now, he focuses on the beast's vital points and attacks the neck of a mutated bear. The bear appears to lose its strength, but in reality, it regains balance and becomes even fiercer. But 2003, without thinking, cuts off the beast's head. He tells Howard that his current limit is 100 points, and if he fights a monster with a score higher than 100, focusing only on vital points won't work. Howard agrees that his physical conditioning still isn't good enough. He needs to make his body stronger, especially since he can no longer throw things at the beasts like before. The best part of this whole story of defeating the beasts and getting stronger was that Howard had collected many wheat seeds scattered on the map. Now he could start rebuilding the shelter. He asks 2003 to properly explain how to plant things and what the agricultural process will be. Since agriculture was 2003's specialty, the robot agrees and explains the entire process in detail, but I won't mention it here because it's quite lengthy. In short, 2003 tells Howard that he doesn't need to do anything, as the robot can handle everything. Howard says he wants to help, but 2003 tells him that agriculture is his job. Howard must continue improving himself. The protagonist accepts this, and they both decide that he will fight during the day and exercise at night. Some time passes, and we see Sharon Young inside the shelter, hearing strange sounds like someone is in a lot of pain. It was Howard, doing push-ups to improve his condition. Sharon feels a little pathetic watching him, because Howard couldn't even do a single push-up properly. His arms were coated with acid and were constantly shaking. Sharon thinks that this might be due to corrosion, and Howard looks very weak. This wasn't good for her plans. The 9th day of the game begins, where Howard is lying on the shelter floor, asleep due to exhaustion. Sharon wakes him up, and he quickly gets up and looks at her. Sharon tells him to follow her, because she has something to show him. After a while, Howard's jaw drops when he sees what Sharon has shown him, a very cool exoskeleton. Howard is highly impressed and asks if it could do anything. Sharon explains that it is just an individual exoskeleton. It's not as complicated as a full robot, so making something more complete is difficult. Its maximum punching power is 300 pounds, but the power can be adjusted as needed. Of course, it requires an energy core fragment for fuel. Howard is very impressed with the metal arms. Now, he could deliver much stronger punches and protect himself from animal teeth. Sharon says she knows it's impossible to stop Howard, so it's better to create something he can use. Then, Sharon asks him to bring something. Howard asks what to bring. Sharon shows him a map and tells him he needs to loot places marked on the map. Howard is surprised and asks if she wants to kill him. Are there beasts with a fighting power of 10,000 there? He looks closely at the map and realizes it's a 10-year-old map. There used to be many shelters there. Sharon tells him that details about these shelters aren't in the records. Howard looks at the map closely and sees that there are some monsters with fighting power up to 100,000. Howard wonders if there could really be monsters with a fighting power of 100,000. If so, hand-to-hand combat would be impossible, even with the metal arms. The only way to win this game is to start from the bottom and collect weapons along the way. Howard tells Sharon that it's fine. Anyway, he will have to explore these places. They will start from the simplest one today. Sharon says she will do everything she can to help Howard. For now, the most important task is to collect information, and it would be great if she could bring back any animals as well. Some time passes, and now Howard improves his appearance. He cuts his hair in the default style and wears an eye patch. Now he is ready for the morning training, and in the afternoon, they're going to the ruins. 2003 jokingly says, "Hey Howard, now you look like me. You only have one eye too." Howard says that Sharon told him it's better to cover it, or it could cause problems later. Since Sharon is smarter than him, it's better to listen to her. But for Howard, it wasn't a big deal. Time passes again, and we see a starry sky and a headset. Sharon is trying to connect to someone through radio signals, but gets no response. Sharon gives up but says that the text-to-speech conversion is finally complete, so she doesn't need to decipher that strange language anymore. She says she can now see what's written in the diaries of this place. Sharon presses the play button, and a voice is heard saying, "Today is the annual festival of the Guardians." The voice continues, saying that they will remember the great purpose of their ancestors from 400 years ago. They will light a bonfire, watch the stars, and raise their hands. The voice goes on, saying that when their ancestors find a new home among the stars, they will return and lead them out of this sea of suffering. They were the fearless guardians. Now, we see a logo that says Museum of the Guardians. Howard arrives at a place that looks like the ruins of the Museum of the Guardians. There is a group of mutant hyenas, beasts with a fighting power of 100 points. Howard can handle them. Howard says that he never imagined he would see a ruined museum. He then asks 2003 if it would like to tell the story of this place. The mutant hyenas appear, but they don't seem too concerned. Instead, 2003 calmly begins to tell the story of the place. It says that it all started when a radioactive meteorite struck Earth 400 years ago. Humanity's ancestors saw the meteorite coming and knew that this event would wipe out most of Earth's species. So, they stopped fighting among themselves and united. This led to rapid advancements in science and technology, and spaceships were created. Just before the meteorite hit Earth, human civilization fled into space. However, not everyone could fit on the spaceships, so some had to be sacrificed. Those who survived the cataclysm came together to form a nation. They were the Guardians. Their dedication and bravery passed down from generation to generation. It is said that when the ancestors find a new home in the universe, they will return and bring back those who were left behind. But those who stayed on Earth waited for centuries, and only enormous creatures arrived in their place. The warrior guardians easily defeated them because they still had the technology their ancestors left behind 400 years ago. Their military power could defeat any beast. But archaeological discoveries indicated that the ancestors of the guardians, those who stayed on Earth to die, were actually criminals. This information hit the guardians' morale like a bomb. Realizing that all of humanity's descendants were criminals, their pride and dedication became a joke. Everything they believed in turned out to be a lie. Now no one would return. The remaining humanity was left to die. This led to deep debates, and people started thinking differently. Hostility grew, and the Guardians divided among themselves. Nations split into regional autonomies, and people focused only on their own groups. Corrosion covered the entire ocean, and since each group only cared about itself, no one tried to stop it. The voice continues, saying that this was the last time the Guardians celebrated the festival in the shelter. They prayed to their ancestors, but no answer came. The last soldier died under the moon while searching for shelter. Now it was their turn. The voice says that they left a loyal robot in the shelter, named 2003. The task of 2003 was to protect the shelter and save the soldiers returning injured. Then a voice says that when people are safe, it will return and take him. That's its promise. After hearing and noting all this, Sharon says that it's no surprise that they have hand-drawn maps, even though they have satellites. Sharon also says that the first-generation people were all criminals. Maybe there were some engineers among them. Finally, Sharon says that she hopes Howard finds something useful in the ruins. If he turns out to be useless like the people of this story, she will kick him out of her life. Now, talking about Howard, he is below, testing his new exoskeleton while beating the mutated hyenas. He hits a hyena with full force, which falls near a robot amidst the ruins. The robot immediately activates and warns Howard that it is a level C security robot. It tells him to be cautious, as this robot has no artificial intelligence. It will attack any intruder. Howard thanks God that he has iron gauntlets, or he would have had to fight the steel robot without any weapons, which would have been very difficult. The robot attacks Howard, but he remembers Sharon's words that the metal ring is the robot's CPU. He spots the metal ring on the robot's chest. As the machine tries to attack him, Howard quickly dodges. Then, using his metal hands, he tries to pull the ring from the robot's chest. With the full power of his exoskeleton, he strikes the robot's chest and pulls the ring out with one hand. Using his foot, he pushes the robot away. At that moment, a door falls behind him. 2003 says that Howard has become very smart with this armor. His fighting power has now reached 200. Howard feels this is very low. He says it's growing too slowly and that he needs to fight a stronger creature. Then he says, "Let's see what's behind that door." Both enter the room, and upon seeing what's there, Howard says the game couldn't get any better. After all the hard work, he's greeted by a skeleton. 2003 says he recognizes the suit. It belongs to the museum curator. But it's strange that the robot is in perfect condition. The skeleton stands straight, and it doesn't look broken anywhere. Why didn't it go with the others, and why did it block the entrance with the security robot? Howard responds that it must have decided to die with the culture. The room was filled with books, all neat and organized. But Howard says it's all useless. If he had gotten out, maybe he could have come back and brought the place to life, but now he's dead. In that case, no culture can be saved. Howard opens a book and is surprised. The book was filled with flags of all countries. He says, "Look, here's Brazil, Neymar, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho." 2003 says these are the flags of ancestors from 400 years ago. Then he tells Howard to look around the room. All these things belong to the ancestors. Then we see magnificent paintings by different places and artists on the walls. Howard retracts his curator thoughts and says that maybe his thinking was limited, but 2003 warns him that these paintings are fake. The real paintings were taken when the meteor came. Heated discussions occurred while trying to restore these artworks in the shelters. Howard immediately realizes that some things are fake, like a samurai holding a Gatling gun. Some time passes, and we see Howard digging a grave for the museum curator. During this time, he finally tells 2003 where he came from. The robot cannot believe that our hero is one of the humans who lived there 400 years ago. It always thought that Howard was an amnesiac soldier, meaning Howard is one of those ancestors. But Howard says that he hasn't married yet, so calling him Poo-Poo feels a bit strange. Then 2003 asks if he has ever seen cute animals like cats, dogs, and birds. Howard responds, "What do you mean? Aren't there cats and dogs in this world?" 2003 replies, "Number 400 years ago, when the meteor was approaching Earth, humans were busy running away, killing each other, and doing weird things. In the meantime, most pets were abandoned. Then the Earth's temperature dropped, and terrible typhoons and snowstorms came. Before the meteor reached, those cute little animals had almost gone extinct." Howard says, "Wait, this all sounds familiar. This is what happened in his previous dream." Then he picks up the Guardian's history book and can't believe what he's reading. It said that an approaching star called Center C exploded, and its fragments were going to collide with Earth in about a year. This caused panic everywhere, and all the electricity was used for spaceship construction. The power supply was cut off, and soon we see a plane that stops working in midair. After that, Howard's first dream begins. He looks around and realizes he's alone. When the plane crashes into a building nearby, he finally realizes that this dream is a series. When he was hunting wolves, people were building spaceships. He recalls what I-67 had said, that the ultimate goal of this game is to figure out how humans' future can be improved with the player's help. This means whatever he is doing now will affect the development of this world. Howard understands that he might be able to change the history of this world. The story continues, and Howard returns to the shelter with many books from the museum. He tells Sharon that he didn't find any animals, but he did find a Defender robot's ring system, which he defeated alone in the museum. Sharon thanks him. Howard asks if she found the lunar shelter she mentioned earlier. Sharon tells him that the shelter is called Su Moon. She hasn't found it yet, but she's confident she will soon. Then she asks Howard why he suddenly became interested in it. Howard tells 2003 to explain the story of the corrosive ocean to Sharon. 2003 explains that the corrosive ocean is not a real ocean. It's actually the digestive juices of mutant animals, known as acid ants. This corrosive ocean is their habitat. These creatures grow rapidly, and their digestive juices can corrode anything. Human ships and submarines couldn't survive this corrosive sea. Missiles couldn't even reach the ocean floor. Within a few years, things went out of control. Howard adds that when the acid ants devour the last piece of Earth, they will move towards humans. That's what Judgment Day means. Sharon finally shows a bit of fear. She suggests that they should gather all their resources and find a shelter. Howard agrees with her and says that they should try to find others. Sharon says that the more people there are, the more fun it will be. Then, she hands Howard a bundle of papers. It's a project for a satellite station that she wants to build. She says Howard will bring the necessary materials, she'll organize everything, and 2003 will complete the entire structure. Howard can't believe that this time Sharon is helping him instead of going against him. Sharon says, "What else can I do? Besides, if they focus on the same goal together, it will work out much better." Howard thanks her and says it means a lot to him, but in Sharon's mind, she's just thinking that not everyone is as crazy as Howard. Once they finish building the satellite station and find the Su Moon shelter, they'll each go their separate ways. Howard thinks that if he can solve this challenge in the game, he'll be able to handle real-world problems too. This game is a test for him. So, friends, they start putting their plan into action. First, they visit a lumber yard where Howard defeated a 230-point scavenger worm. Then, they head to a steel factory where he beat a 320-point rusty venom scorpion. Meanwhile, Sharon and 2003 start working with the materials Howard brought. Howard faces off with a 430-point giant lizard and then a 600-point security robot. The two people in the shelter are also giving their best. 2 weeks go by, and it's now the 24th day of the game. As we can see, a giant antenna has been built. Sharon thanks Howard in 2003 for their hard work and says that now she can try to locate the Su Moon shelter. Howard says he's waiting for good news, then calls 2003 over. He shows the robot some trees that he worked hard to bring. 2003 is happy because now he can finally plant the trees. On the other hand, Sharon is also happy because she's about to leave this barren land. After a while, we see a satellite peacefully orbiting Earth. Sharon successfully accesses the satellite and establishes contact with the Su Moon shelter. But then there's interference on her screen. A voice is heard, claiming to be from the Su Moon shelter. The person on the other end says they detected a national satellite use and asks Sharon to clarify her intentions. Sharon immediately asks for help, explaining that she's stuck in a shelter and requesting them to send someone for rescue. The person on the other end is surprised to hear they have found a survivor, but they tell her that they don't offer rescue services and advise Sharon to take a power core to the launch platform where she can try to save herself. Sharon asks what the launch platform means. The voice replies that she should adjust her visual perspective and look behind her. And friends, you won't believe it, but the Su Moon shelter is not on Earth. Yes, it's on the moon. Sharon can't believe it and asks how that's possible. The voice asks if she wants to make a reservation for the launch platform, but only one passenger is allowed, and 1,000 kilograms of power core fuel will be required to reach the moon. Sharon starts thinking, their shelter's core weighs 1,100 kilograms, and since only one person can go, it means either she or Howard can survive. She says yes, she wants to make the reservation and gives her name, Sharon Young. The voice says, okay, you're allowed to reach the launch platform. We'll meet on the moon. A while later, we see that Howard, together with 2003, has planted the trees. Sharon sits next to him, and they sit in silence for a while. Then Sharon says she couldn't find the place she was looking for. Howard says, maybe it's a very hidden place. Slowly you'll find more clues. Sharon says that she will pay more attention. Then she asks Howard if he needs anything else, if he wants anything more from her. Howard asks innocently, what do you mean? Do you want to help me with something? Sharon replies, we both know the end of the world is coming. There's nothing wrong with fulfilling unfinished desires before dying. Howard ignores the hint in her words and only begins to think about it. When she says, before dying, it reminds him that before getting here, he had almost been killed by his own partner. Sharon says nothing, and Howard feels like he didn't understand her point. He tells her that it was his fault. He says his partner was too excited to start working and earn money, but he himself wasn't that excited, and it's a lesson they should learn, to pay more attention to their partner's needs. Sharon fixes her hair as he says this. Then Howard adds that he should be more optimistic and not think too much about death, which will come one day. Now that she trusts him, and they both have become a team, he will take care of her. Sharon gives a faint smile and says, okay,